Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm Steve Smith, along with Ivan Ozerets at the table.
Hello.
And on the phone, we've got Dave Anderson, a regular now at the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. And we're lucky to have our guest, Brandon Fallon. Everybody, good afternoon. That's what you're supposed to say, good afternoon, guys.
Good afternoon.
But let me read this about Brandon. The guy who brings a smile to your face, 20 points, longtime associate, Southern Cal, got to be top 5 in the 18s. Dana Point, is it Dana Point High?
Dana Hills High School.
Yeah,
Yep.
saw a photo of you playing when you're playing high school tennis. Played at UNLV, transferred to Cal Poly. Has a degree in hotel management, which makes sense with your personality. The guidance counselor probably steered you that way because of hospitality. After college, played the French circuit. I want to ask about that. ATP, ranked, played in 33 countries. Coaching career, started as volunteer at Cal Poly. You have to tell me what I'm getting right here. Assistant tennis coach at San Diego State. USPTA SoCal president. USTA high performance coach. Academy tennis. Vantage Tennis Academy. Country club. I'd like to ask you about Truin. It's a powerhouse in tennis now. And Ivan, tell us if you would state the name of his club. Laguna
Nigel Racquet Club.
Laguna Nigel Racquet Club. Actually, one of your longtime friends, Brandon, Dave Secker, said that Ivan is from the mean streets of Mission Viejo. And we've looked at, I've been to that club, but to look at it online, it's like you have an army of fitness trainers. Wow. And want to go through the titles of the pro. There's one pro who, her job is just to arrange matches. But I've got down last at the 20 points, coached Connor Smith. With got to get this in. And unlike Dave Anderson, Brandon's got a big smile, big personality, and he's a graduate of the USTA High Performance. Had to get that in, Anderson. Also, like Anderson, father of 2 daughters. Likes old cars. I saw a photo of your old BMW. That must be like, what year was that? Then here's a quote. We'll get going. We started off, Brandon, as you know, with these podcasts. Like, what was your favorite breakfast food? Don't wait until you're professional to do professional things. I might have to say that twice. Write that on the bathroom wall. Brandon Fallon. Don't wait until you're professional to do professional things. But no, it's a really impressive. You have covered all facets of tennis. But yeah, let's get going. Great to have you here. Let's start in the beginning. How'd you get connected to the great game of tennis?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me, guys. How did I get connected? That's a little bit of an interesting story because I was not geared towards playing tennis. No background in tennis at all in our family. Nobody had ever played the sport. But my mom got a job at Laguna Nigel Racquet Club, and where I'm working now. And so we basically had a free membership. She was teaching aerobics with the socks and everything in the 80s. And I saw I was playing a lot of baseball at that point and did pretty well in baseball. Was really gearing towards that. And then saw these 2 kids hitting on court 11, which is one of the stadium courts. And they were my age. And I said, wow, I didn't know that tennis could be like that. And they were tournament players at 10 years old, or I think they were 10. I was 10, so I started to play a little bit of tennis and tried it. And every day since 12, I played. So I got really into it pretty quickly. Not early.
Southern Cal, with coaches, did you work with a number of coaches coming up?
Oh, yeah. Started with a guy in San Clemente named Don Davis. And he had a good group of kids our age. This is when I was 12. And I trained with him for a little bit. Then, I don't know, out of the blue, my dad's like, we're going up to Balboa Bay Club. And at this point, I considered a pusher. I just made every ball and ran everything down. And I did pretty well in junior tournaments because of that. But I didn't have a game. So somehow my dad knew to go up and work with these guys of Mark Walpole and Sam Olson.
Oh, wow.
So at 13, 14, right around that age, we went up there and Sam, talks to me. I think he filmed me. Kevin Kim's on the court next to me. And I was told that I had to change everything. So we went about changing my serve, backhand, basically everything. And went through that for about a year and a half. And so that's where this connection with your group comes from too.
For our listeners, I've known you so many years now. I didn't know that that you did that with Sam Olson and Mark Walpole. They both attended the program that we talk about quite often. That Dave obviously was there, Tyler Junior College.
Yeah. So I really got lucky getting with them. That's how I feel about it. And it changed my trajectory a lot. I think I went from a pretty good junior to always getting better every year. Even all the way through playing, I was still getting better. Instead of hitting that wall where you just kind of teeter out and you're staying at that same level. So that was kind of why I love tennis, is that obviously when you're getting better at something, it's more fun to play.
How long did you go before you dropped baseball?
I went till 13. So I guess another 3 years of baseball and tennis together, or 2 years. I remember leaving practice early. I had a coach named Mike Epstein. He played on the Mets, and he would call me McEnroe as I was leaving the courts or leaving the baseball field because I had to go to tennis. And so the baseball community doesn't really like that I was leaving for tennis to go miss some of the practice, but I'm glad I chose tennis.
Was that the Mike Epstein who later coached Naratilova?
He played on the Mets. I don't know if he coached, but he was a very good coach. He was, a big time player. He played professional baseball for 12 years, I think, or longer.
Yeah, it was probably the same namesake with.
Mike Epstepp.
Mike Epstepp. There you go. Correct, the senior citizen. Thank you, David. That's how we have to have you young guys help out the 70-year-old. That's what we call a senior moment. It's Mike Epstepp. There you go. With
that was the last conference, Steve, we got to go to together.
Mike Epstepp.
We listened to Mike Epstepp talk about choking in women's tennis.
With choking, here's a time for an Arthur Ashe quote. Everybody chokes. The person who wins is the one who chokes the least. Your age group, to get to the top five, you mentioned Kevin Kim. Who are some of the other players from your age group? So, as they say, good crop?
Let's put a little asterisk on that. Brian Brothers, Kevin Kim, were in my age division. They're a year older. And so they never played a lot of the Southern California tournaments. They would play like 2 of them, and then you wouldn't see them the rest of the year. So I guess maybe it was like a top 10 kind of guy in Southern California if you add everybody in.
No, fair enough. I appreciate you saying that.
So, and then there was, and one of my stories I tell because I was starting to do pretty well in the 16s, and I played a kid. He was definitely 2 years younger than me, might have been 3. He comes up, he's about 5'1", and I'm like, I'm going to crush this kid, but he's number 1 in the 14. And, at that age, you don't want to lose to somebody 2 years younger than you. But his name was Philip King. And tennis will humble you, in Southern California for sure, humbles you in tennis. This guy comes up and beats me 2-1. And at that point, I was doing pretty well in tournaments in Southern California. I was winning a lot of the ones I was playing, and he just took it to another level. So,
no, I remember watching him play. He played at Duke, right?
Yeah.
With when you were coming up, did they have the tournaments where I remember years, obviously later, where you were already coaching, well into your coaching career, but in Southern Cal, they would let players come in from other sections. They had to do a little paperwork, and you'd play a tournament one weekend, and if you kept winning, you'd get to go back the next week, and their draws at 256.
Yes.
They had those when you were growing up?
Oh, yeah. You were neither a second weekend player or you were a first weekend player. If you were a second weekend player, you were top 16 in Southern California range.
Yeah.
And there was a big distinction.
I was so surprised that the players, they didn't have consolation because the players, I guess the coaches got fed up with the players not wanting to play in the back draw.
Yep. Southern California, I mean, nobody wants to play consolation. And it's still to this day, they can't figure it out. It's mandatory they play on the level 6s. And I run some of these tournaments. And I will say, please let me know if you're going to play or not, because a lot of you guys, they don't show up and they won't even say anything and they don't care about the loss of points. And even though it's mandatory, it's just not part of our culture to play back draw or consolation.
With certainly, you made a very humble comment. It is true that the rankings, like say Kevin Kim or the Bryan brothers, you wouldn't see them throughout the year. But what were the Bryan brothers? What thoughts do you have of them when they were really young, watching them?
Yeah, I mean, they would. Wayne Bryan was notorious for inviting some of the kids up to his club in Camarillo. I actually think it was called Camarillo Tennis Center or Tennis Club. And he would put on a clinic and all the top guys would be up there with him. And it was very fun. But playing those guys in tournaments, the level difference was pretty high compared to me. If you got games off Mike or Bob, that was a big deal. You lost like 3-3. That was a great match.
Yeah.
Because they were just so solid.
And what about high school tennis? It's faded in certain parts of the country. What was it like during your day?
During my day, you had to go to practice. And so now it's changed a lot in our area. The kids don't practice during the year. They just go and play the 3 sets and, they go for the matches. But growing up, I graduated high school in 97 and I went to every practice for 4 years. I don't know if that was the best thing, but it was just part of how it worked. And there was no other choice.
And did pretty much all the juniors, of course, when you grew up, homeschooling wasn't prevalent. Did most of the juniors play? The top juniors played high school tennis?
Yeah, a lot of them did. Yep. Even Taylor Dent played. There was a lot of guys that played high school tennis. I don't think I know, you know what Kevin Kim did at Sunny Hills. Yeah, I think everybody played high school tennis.
Dave has brought this up before on our podcast. It was a big deal to play your section. So back in the day, I understand now you don't even have to play your section to get to nationals. But the SoCal sectional tournament must have been lights out. Must have been really tough draws.
Yeah, they were. The sectional had 5 days before it would get to the main draw, which was the top 16 kids. And so there was 5-12 draw, probably 256 at least. And then you got to 16. If you got to the 16, you get to go play the main draw guys. When I grew up. Now they've made it only a 64 draw and it's a little bit smaller. So it excludes some kids, which I don't know, it was kind of a big deal to play sectionals. So everybody would play it.
And then you went to UNLV. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I my dad sent, this is when there's no email really. There's a letter sending. So we sent out a bunch of letters and I didn't grow up with a lot of money. So my dad was a teacher, 7th grade. My mom was a part-time nurse. So we didn't know how it worked in college. But my dad sent out that we wanted a full scholarship. And so it made it a little tougher to find schools that were kind of that maybe could have been a stretch and I could have played at a little bit. And so I did take some visits and I went to Notre Dame. I took a visit to William and Mary. I took a visit to Boise but UNLV, he offered me a full scholarship And so I went for that instead of maybe the best fit. Anyways, that being said, I played for a coach named Larry Easley. He was at Long Beach State, kind of a legend in the area of Southern California. And he was getting back into coaching at the college level. I think he ran a magazine for a few years. I don't remember the name of that, but he was a good recruiter and he had a good team. And it was a great experience. I was there for 1 year. We played every good team. I felt a lot of pressure there. And I'm sure college guys know this one. You play 6. Everybody on the team below you wants you to lose maybe, but you feel that, or they want your spot at least. They don't want you to lose, but they want your spot. So I think I lost a few 3-3 deciding matches. I lost to Illinois when Tylee was there. I could have won that match and that would have been a nice one. And then to go to the Sweet 16, I was up in the third set against Pepperdine and it was down to my match and I lost that one as well. So we had a little meeting at the end of the year and he said, just due to results and how you're doing, you're probably not going to have a scholarship next year. So I said, that's a little rough. So I had to make a decision. And I think things work out for a reason. And this one was one of those where I transferred to a school where I was more of a line 1 or 2 right away versus line 6. And so I transferred over to Cal Poly.
Let me back up a little bit. Larry Easley, am I saying that last name correctly?
Yeah.
He was a teaching pro in Southern Cal. I remember going to watch him teach when I was with Braden in Orange County. But he was at a club, right? He was at that for a long time. I remember Pete Fisher, the physician who, or I think everybody knows the story with Pete Sampras, that Fisher took him from one coach to the next. And so Pete Sampras, I understand that he went to Easley to work with his volley. It's always a story I was told. But I made arrangements, went in to watch him teach. But that was back in the day where if you were a really good junior coach and you wanted to apply for a college position, you had a really good chance to get it. But I think that's really gone away. If you want to be a college coach today, and I know you've been a college coach, you could tell us about that, but that it's almost like you have to start in the profession. Let's go back to those 3-all matches. That's something that I tell juniors all the time. They're freaking out in practice, and can you imagine playing a 3-all match?
I mean, I couldn't even hold the racket in some of these matches. I was so nervous.
No, it's amazing to watch those.
And we all knew, I know Illinois was ranked really high at this point. There were probably 2 or 3. We were around 19 when I was playing UNLV. And so these wins are really big. We're at the Blue Gray. I don't know if you guys know that tournament. It's in Texas. And I mean, this is like maybe career defining for the program to beat Illinois. And the freshman loses at 6. We drove straight to the airport, didn't eat a bite of food, and nobody said a word in the van the whole way home. Or all in the airport anyway. I mean, we drove, literally flew from there home, and it was over.
Who did you play from Illinois, Brandon?
It was a lefty, and I think he was from France. This was in '98, and I don't remember his name.
No, Tyler did. He had a player that transferred from Tyler Junior College. I just had listened to Andy Roddick's podcast. He had Mike Costa on. And just in our last podcast, we talked about Ty Lee and a 10-year plan that just came up with Andres Barbosa, who played college tennis the same time you did, give or take a few years. And I haven't got a copy of Costa's book yet, but Roddick, obviously he's read the book or certainly read excerpts of the book. He seemed very well informed. I don't know if he has read it cover to cover, and Costa said that he appreciated the fact that he just picked it up and but he used all his teammates first name only. And one thing that Roddick said to Casa, which was I thought, it's enlightening. He said that I know the last name of all the players you mentioned just by the first name. Like say a Kerry Franklin. Graydon's name came up. Dave Graydon Oliver. Tylee did have a couple foreign players. Kevin Anderson at the end, but he had a couple foreign players. But then it really turned into pretty much all American players.
I think this guy was the only foreigner on the team.
Yeah,
the one I played. Everybody else was American. Yeah, at that point.
But Tylee obviously had a connection to Tyler Junior College, the coach, long time. John Peterson. So I knew that he would go down there periodically to recruit.
Right.
What was Las Vegas like?
It was an interesting experience because I didn't live in the dorms, so he put us up in apartments near the club, near the courts, across the street. When you come from Orange County and you go to Vegas, it's a little bit of a culture shock because there's just a lot going on, and we're right on the Strip. UNLV's right. It's a street over from the Strip, and so it was eye-opening a little bit to go. That was a big change for me on that end. And when you're under 21, it's not. I don't know if it's the best experience for that age.
So you couldn't hit the casinos and play blackjack and all that? No,
nothing.
Yeah.
So it was more a tennis experience, and I'm just doing as well as I could in school.
I was on that campus once. I was doing some projects for the Utah Tennis Association. Took a group of kids from Salt Lake, and we were there. I think it's back in the day. It was October 1st was the first day that basketball teams could practice, and the whole student body, they practiced at midnight. As soon as the clock struck midnight, the first day of October, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people were, inside the stadium, obviously outside the stadium. Was basketball big when you were there?
Oh yeah, we won the WAC that year. That was pretty exciting.
Yeah, they had the coach. He always had the white towel. There's a trivia question for you, Dave Anderson.
Jerry Tarkanian.
Tarkanian. Was he the coach then when you were there?
No, he had left. I think he left a few years before. And I think he was I don't know exactly where he was, but I think he was at Fresno or his next school after that.
No, I was on the facility that you guys played on but there was definitely a basketball school when you were there, huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah. All the basketball guys had nice cars.
That's odd.
So it was kind of, it was pretty obvious that things were going on then. I don't want to say for sure what was going on, but there was definitely some help to those families and things like that, I think.
With what you do with your summers when you were at UNLV? Did you go back to Southern Cal? Did you play?
Yeah. So I was one of those guys that just kept playing all summer. I didn't teach. I didn't do anything except keep working on my game. And I think that was the biggest thing that helped me keep getting better as well, is that I felt like I wanted to see if I can go to the next level. And so that was, I kept playing the money tournaments in Southern California, which there's a lot of them here. There's not as many now. I'm not sure how that works, but back then there was, you could win $1,500, $2,000 in a weekend.
And tell us about the transfer to Cal Poly.
Yeah, so I talked to the coach, went on a visit while I was at UNLV. Larry said that, yeah, it's great. It's a great school. So I went over, visited, and so I went from UNLV where there was me and another American on the team, and we had two Yugoslavians. So Yugoslavia was still a country at this point, and they were really good. And then I had two Israelis and a couple other guys from different places. But So it was a totally different program. I went to a school that everybody was from Southern California or Northern California because they only had in-state scholarships. And so we were basically a California like all-star team, but not the all, like the second tier all-star group that was, very competitive and could do well against other teams. But our program I went from like a top 25, top 30 team to maybe a 50 to 60. We were in the rankings in that range the years I was there.
Brandon, who was the coach?
Chris Efright. He was a local guy that I liked working with him. He didn't make it all 3 of my years there. He moved on the last year, and then we had an interim coach for my last season, which wasn't as great. But then they got a guy named Trevor Croneman. I don't know if you guys know him.
I've heard the name.
He was in Texas for a while.
Yeah, he was
down in Houston.
He did the team tennis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pro team tennis. Yeah.
Yeah, lefty.
He's actually a righty.
Lefty. Is he a righty?
Yeah. And
is he a South African?
No, he's a Floridian.
Oh, Floridian.
But he lives out here now, and he's the head of USTA Southern California.
Oh, okay.
And he was coming from the financial world, working 80 hours a week, to being the head coach at Cal Poly with us. And so I helped him for a year as well after I was done playing or done at school.
What's his story? How long was he at Cal Poly before he went to the USTA?
So he played for Greg Patton at UCI.
Yeah.
And he won finals in NCAAs maybe, or won it in doubles. He was, I think, top 20 in the country, top 20 in the world, ATP in doubles for, I would say 10 years.
Wow.
Very good player, big guy, just, huge serve. He was at Cal Poly for a few years, but then took the UCI job after 4 or 5 years. His alma mater.
So that was when Pat went to Boise State? No,
that was after. There was a guy, a coach in between named Steve Clark that was there. And then Trevor took over to UCI.
From an academic standpoint, UNLV, Cal Poly, what was a better fit for you?
Cal Poly was, definitely. I didn't actually major in hotel management at Cal Poly. I majored in business with engineering.
Business with engineering. So much for
it's called industrial technology.
Wikipedia, my research. I read that hotel management. Yes, I did.
I did major in that for one at UNLV. I did.
Oh, okay.
That was the best major there. So I was kind of picked it on that.
So yeah, that doesn't really fit. Cal Poly doesn't have hotel management, I bet, right?
It doesn't. You're right.
So tell us again, what you majored in?
Industrial technology. What do? You go, it's like doing manufacturing and making it more efficient and trying to cut costs for companies that manufacture stuff, usually high-end, computer. And I worked at a company actually for a little bit that made generators. We had a bunch of rolling blackouts, and they were one of the companies that made 40-foot container generators that would go to hospitals and other places.
When you hear the word engineering, so you got a real degree.
It was a pretty good one. It was, again, I picked a little bit based on, it was the highest paying job out of the college.
And did you, as you were grinding through that degree plan, did you think that you would take that direction, or did you know that you were going to try to coach?
I didn't know I had no idea. So I wanted to play though after college. And so I kept working hard. And then it took me another year to graduate from Cal Poly because some of the transfer credits didn't transfer. And so that's when I helped the team. I was a volunteer assistant, and I was still hitting with the guys and training. And then I really wanted to give myself a shot at playing and getting out there and traveling.
Yeah, let's talk about that experience playing after Cal Poly. But I'm always amazed how, those who are fortunate enough to play college tennis, they look back and say it was, the greatest time of their life. Are you still in touch with your teammates, and did you really enjoy college tennis?
Oh yeah, definitely. And that was a great program to be part of because of us. We all stayed locally, which was kind of nice, and gave back to Southern California, in the area. One of my buddies on the team is a director of tennis at Avila Beach Tennis Club. One of the guys on the team, he's the head of USC men's program, Brett Macy. Almost like a lot of the guys on that team, of the 12 guys, stayed in tennis. And so that part it was nice to, still be in touch with those guys and talk tennis. We still do camping trips. All my wedding party with those guys were those guys. Yeah, it was a great experience.
And they stayed in tennis, and most of them are in Southern Cal?
Oh, yeah. All of them stayed in Southern California or Northern Cal. There's a few that are up in Northern Cal. One's at Pebble Beach. One's up in Palo Alto. So
with
we're all pretty local.
Bring Ivan in here to a couple comments. One is that he's from the same neck of the woods you are, but his sister plays at Cal Poly. Did she learn on the same courts as Brandon? You and your sister?
We bounced around. We spent majority of our time, I'd say, growing up, Laguna Nigel Racquet Club, a few other clubs, RCI. You're very familiar with that as well, Brandon.
Yeah.
The Monarch Club as well. So the Spearman clubs. We grew up around there. Nelly Gill Ranch Tennis Club. I'm sure you know of it. We grew up very much in that area.
Yeah, it's a great area.
Does Cal Poly get a lot of teams do that? The alumni go play knock some balls around against the current team?
I've done it one time in the last 4 years. They do it, and sometimes it falls on my event weekend. So it makes it a little tougher.
No, you have so much to share with us. We'll get to events where you're a superstar. But tell us about college, post-college. Tell us about playing.
Yeah, so I went I'll just be honest with this. I didn't think I was going to be a professional tennis player. I'm very realistic with my level at everything I do. And so I wanted to go out and travel and make it work financially for me, my parents a little bit, they were helping, and get that experience because I'd never really left the country. So my dad's a big traveler. Before they had me, he had been all over Europe and traveled a few times. So he really wanted me to have that. And so I chose a lot of my travel trips and my tournaments based on that, which I thought was good for the experience and maybe not as good for getting ranked as high as I could have. But somebody told me about French club tennis. And so I looked into that. And that's kind of where I started. I went to France for a summer, you have to play 10 tournaments. Once you get your, let me backtrack a second here. You go to Roland Garros, you go downstairs and you go to like an office and you get a classement, and they base it on how much tennis you played, what level of tennis you played, and kind of give you something to start with. I was started as a -4-6. And I don't know if you guys know the system that well, but there's -30, -15, -4-6, and -2, 6, and 0. Then it goes down from there to pluses. But they gave me a pretty good ranking. And with that system, you start sometimes in the semifinals of tournament, or not semis, usually quarterfinals of tournaments. And so we trying to navigate that and did a summer of that. That was a great experience. I mean, I highly recommend that. You could stay there and make a living playing tennis and never play an ATP tournament or an ITF.
No, let's spend a little more time talking about this. I've recommended to have so many players to go over to France and play, and certainly they've played a lot of young men women too, but they played college tennis and they played predominantly on hard courts. And for our listeners, the French system is not connected with ATP points. We say it all the time in this podcast. It's pretty easy. The French, we have in the U.S. 5 times as many people, but they have 5 times as many players. But the system they have, so when you say you start in the quarters, that means, for example, a small village, a small city would have a tournament that people could feed into. Why don't you just elaborate a little bit more upon the French system?
Yeah, so I go there. So we decide to do the French Riviera, which is in the summer probably the better level of tennis, but everywhere's good. And so we start in Nice, play a tournament there, and I look at the draw, and we're starting. I think maybe that one I started a little bit, like in the round of 32. And I tell the story because there's so many good players there, and all of them are. You don't know who you're going to play, but so I play this person. He gets to me, and he's one of the best players in the country in the 18. And I'm playing first round on clay, and I had no idea. I mean, these guys are good on clay, and I didn't grow up on it. And I lose that match, just purely on not growing. It's a different level, but he was a -2-6. So then that tournament's over. I started there. Then I go to the next city called Fréjus, and I play a tournament there. And this one's on a surface that I've never seen in my life. It has holes in it, and it's a hard court. It's like they throw a bunch of rocks on the ground, and then they cover it with a hard court surface. And you can play, I guess, in the rain on it, but I'm not sure exactly how it works. But that's their hard court.
Yeah, and tarmac. So, it's like playing on tarmac.
Yeah. It was a different surface than what we have here.
Right.
But it was still close enough. So I'm getting back to the draw. So I look at the draw. This one had started 2 weeks before. So these tournaments are going on for 2 weeks. And then I get there, and my buddy that I'm traveling with, we get there, and we get to play at the end of the tournament. This is so that one I started a little stronger in the quarters or round of 16. I beat a guy that was my same classmate. And then I see a guy, I probably think he smoked like 8 cigarettes, maybe, somewhere in that range. And he's drinking espresso. And I go, I hope I play that guy. And it ends up that I am playing this guy. We're warming up, and he only can slice his backhand. And he looks like he's probably 35, 32. I thought he was old. I'm 21. And I got a tennis lesson that I hadn't gotten in years from that guy. He kept every ball low. He never missed. He did everything right. And those experiences are just priceless for you getting better. And it's from a guy that he probably didn't even do a warm-up. He probably just came out there and started, beating up on me and knew he was going to beat me.
The red clay. What type of balls were you playing with? Did you play with the balls come out of a box? Was it Pirellis or Tree Thorns?
Boy, I don't remember that detail.
Yeah.
But I did. So I decided to do half hard court, half clay, because I really wanted to get better on clay. And I definitely improved my clay level. There was also tournaments that were indoor in the middle of summer on carpet. I mean, if you want to get good at tennis and you want to be more versatile, I just recommend going over there because you're going to play on a different surface every tournament.
No, I remember playing a tournament in England, and I was playing this South African lefty, and it was on the fastest surface they had. It was grass, artificial grass that had no sand, and it was totally worn. So it rains, and they have 5 different surfaces. One of the hardcourt indoor, they called their dirt shale. They had grass, and you had no idea after the rain delay what surface you'd be put on. This was in Bournemouth, and I was just hoping I hope they put me on the dirt to play this guy. Actually, I'm sorry, it started on the grass, and then it rained, so the grass was out. And so what they did is they put me on this. My chances of winning were even less playing against this kid on this. I mean, it was so fast. But I remember one time playing. It was a group of American teaching pros, It was back when a group of us were connected with the Vic Braden Tennis Schools in Europe. So we play at an indoor hall on Friday. I play a match and I win. But so the Sunday, so we didn't do anything on Saturday, but the Sunday we went to the outdoor club and I played the same guy. And not that I've ever had any big money, but I would have bet every penny I had that I would not lose to this guy. Because it's a guy I beat on Friday night. And, it was Friday night. We had dinner and it was a social. And then, okay, Sunday we get together. And, anyway, it sounds like the same story. I got beat by guys. I mean, I did a guy named Klaus. I just think there wouldn't be any way I would lose to him. I had a group of kids in Germany at Dusseldorf. So this kid from Japan, very good player. He's 17 and went on and played college tennis in the U.S. So he plays somebody on David Squire's senior club team. Men's team, not the seniors, the men's. And the Japanese kid wins. And the gentleman was so nice. He said, "I'm going on vacation." The Germans, they go on like a 4-week vacation. And we were there. He knew we would be there when he got back. He goes, "My wife is going to be mad at me, but I'm taking my rackets on my vacation. I'm going to practice. When I come back, I will beat that kid." And sure enough, he did. But the French system, that's what the UTR's got a lot of positive. The UTR missed the mark on anybody and everybody plays, and there's so much match play. Go through the rating system a little bit more, if you would.
Yeah. So like I said, it's minus 30. Those guys are probably, I would say, 300 in the world to about 500 in the world. Then a minus 15, I would say, is 500 to maybe 800 range, ATP. And then minus 4.6 is a really good college player to maybe having some points. And then down from there, a minus 2.6 is a home run for a college coach if the freshman comes in and plays at that level, or 0. They're going to play pretty high on a team in Division I. Then you go down from there. Like I said, it's plus 2.6, I think plus 4.6. It goes down. There's so many levels. It's a little like UTR, how they do it.
Yeah, Dave Hall, the UTR is based on that.
Oh, is it? Okay, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. And so you have to win a bunch of matches at that level to go up to the next level. And so mine was preliminary when I got there. They usually put the Americans or some of the players that played college tennis a little higher than they should be, I think. And so then I got there, and that first year I was lucky enough to stay at minus 4.6. And so I was, with that level, I was able to play, like I said, in the higher level tournament. But, these guys, I'm playing guys that are from Argentina. I played this guy, Maximo Gonzalez. And, the guy becomes, I think he got to like top 120, 130 in the world. And all he was doing was traveling and playing at 18, playing French tournaments. And so I get the experience was just, there's no other one like it that I've seen.
When you mentioned Argentina, I've heard for years that so many players that are realistic that they may not have just simply the serve for men's tennis. A lot of players from at that time, your time, it would have been Czechoslovakia, but now Slovakia, the Czech Republic. The players go and play that circuit, and you've already touched upon it. If you could talk a little bit more about it, is that you knew you'd break even. I think so many American kids, maybe their uncles got some money, and actually, coming back to Costa's book, I have to read it, but he said he had raised $176,000, and I can remember advising those players to go play in France first. But I think of Jeremy Wertzman, who was one in the NCAAs. He tells people that's one of the biggest regrets, that I told him to go play in France, because he played indoor tennis growing up in Rochester, New York, and then he played at Florida for a year, then Ohio State. Ego kills. I think kids who are very, very successful in college tennis, I always say, you're going to go to France and lose to 16-year-olds.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about the money.
Yeah. So the money was good enough, I would say. You would play, even if you lost, you would get 150 euros, let's say, for round of 16. Then if you won and you were in the quarters, you'd get 300 euros. And then if you got to the finals, you get 500 euros. And some guys were playing 3 tournaments a week in that system, so they were doing pretty well. I think we were doing 2 a week max. Yeah, I think we did. A couple a week was pretty much where we were at. And the better tournaments with that money you would start in the round of 16 or 32. And then there's tournaments where it was the max you could be was like a -4-6. So they don't have any -15 or -30s in them. And those tournaments had less money. They're all at these clubs that are owned by the city. And so the community really comes out and watches, and the finals will be at night on a Friday. Everybody brings their champagne out and their suit, and they're looking good, and they want to watch who's in the final. And I was lucky enough to get to a few finals, and it was a great experience, which, was nice because, like you said, I broke even for those trips.
You're just traveling within France. It's not like you got to go from country to country.
Right. So it's all on the TGV, which is the fast train. And you're basically just splitting rooms with whoever you travel with. And it was, I hope my girls, if they get into tennis, want to do that kind of stuff in those trips.
So none of the tournaments supplied housing. Everything was, there was no building. You didn't stay with families?
No, not much. Not that I remember specifically. I remember staying at like a bed and breakfast on a couple of the trips. Now the club tennis experience was totally different, because at that point I went back for another summer, and I was getting better, and I became a -15. And so they, when you're a -15, I was going to play high on a pretty good club team. Then they give you housing. They paid me per match 1,000 euros, and they paid for all my flights and everything. And so that was, on the money side, a little better experience for that. And that was just like college tennis.
Let me ask, Ivan, what was the name of the type of tournament we were just at? PPR, which is professional?
PTT.
PTT. What's that stand for?
Professional Tennis Tournament. UTR PTT.
So yeah, Ivan and I made a swing through Florida on our way back after doing a workshop in Atlanta. We stopped in North Atlanta. We were on the campus where they won all the NAI national championships, Gwinnett, Georgia. Mm-hmm. And a young Maggie Sones, we watched her. She's 15. And I had, on the first part of the trip, watched her on the UST campus play a playoff. And she, I guess the winner of the playoff, she won all her matches, and as a result gets to play, the 18s at Indian Wells. But she's playing Robin Anderson, who's now 30-31, somebody who I worked with. I know I sent her out to David's place briefly, but or she was there for a brief period of time. But I tell people that's the closest to the French system. Do they have those both? Are you guys familiar with that in Southern Cal? There's a lot of people did that during COVID, right? Money tournaments.
Yeah, they have them now. I wish they were around when I was playing. There's one going on in Newport Beach right now.
How about you, Dave? They threw out Texas?
Yeah, the thing is, in 2025, they made a it's a global effort now. And, if you pull up the schedule around the world, there's multiple PTTs going on as we speak. Everywhere on the globe, and the money they've increased prize money in them too, and it's almost exactly what you experienced with the French circuit. That the proximity to the tournaments is where it changes. You're doing it all within one country's border, but now the PTTs I think are going to change. What they've done this year, I think they're going to change. Kind of like you said, Brandon, how you didn't have any delusions maybe about thinking you were going to maybe hold up a Wimbledon trophy, but you had a dream to travel and play and keep improving. And There's going to be a lot of good tennis players going that route that aren't chasing points, but they're wanting to travel the globe, and now PTP has given them that chance.
Yeah, that's great.
Dave's place with 25 pros, so someone who's running a program that large, you get up every day and it's like, okay, I got to make this work for 25 pros, so it's got to be a win-win-win. I think the one thing is American juniors, there's so many factors to tennis, so many pieces of the puzzle. I know even our neighbors, the Canadians. So if a kid goes from Canada and they play overseas at the beginning of summer, the end of summer, they can go back and play their nationals, but their points are going to count. So if they go play tennis Europe. But I think the big thing is on clay. I tell people when you look across the courts on a college tennis match, you can only almost guess the kids who grew up on clay. There's no easy matches on clay. The junior matches, it's like, you see kids with very poor mechanics overall, but quantity wins at that level. Obviously, you want to get to the point where you have quality and quantity with how you move the racket. But yeah, I think that whole thing on clay. I mean, how long did it take you to get comfortable with being on clay?
I don't know if I ever got fully comfortable, but I could beat people that are my level.
But you didn't feel like you were on roller skates.
No, I could slide a little bit and yeah, I could stay in points and not feel like I was on, roller skates, like you said. But I liked it when it was a little wetter, the clay. I didn't want to be on dry clay. And I liked when the person hit the ball a little more. So I got the pace.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got some chances to play some good guys on the clay, and it was a great experience, like I said, in France. But I also played a little more than that after that. And but my match toughness was pretty high after playing for 10 weeks straight.
Let's go over the match count, though. So you in that system, you end up playing you play so many matches because the levels and then how you're fed into the tournaments, and then also, as Dave mentioned, the travel. What was your match count like? Like how many matches on the average?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I think I probably played 40 matches that summer, maybe more.
Yeah.
But I know minimum 40.
No, that's
so that was in a I would say 8-week period.
I talked to Maggie Sloan's mother this morning, is that they have a formula where how much money do you spend per match? And that's something that is a major problem in the U.S. I know Dave Fish, it was Dave Howell who copied the French system, put the UTR in place mathematically. But Dave Fish is one that really did the hard yards launching it, to get it on the map. And because Fish always said there's two problems with American tennis: instruction and competition. And I know Dave Anderson, I mentioned earlier, said, I can just use the word, we don't do Daves. We had your sidekick, Dave Secker, Dave Anderson, on at one time. Took me about 20 minutes to realize Coach Secker and Coach Anderson, Dave and Dave. But so with Fish, he was disappointed that the UTR, and in fact, he after he retired, he's working full time with the UTR, but he's not now. Actually, a couple of his former players. Again, a lot of positives to the UTR, but it's still, get your checkbook out, and it didn't follow what Wayne Bryan was always preaching. If you could just just walk around your block or get on your bicycle or go a few miles down the road with your mom to just get more matches. I think it's amazing how few matches American kids are playing now.
Yeah. And I was lucky enough, going back to my high school years, to be at a club called Palisades Tennis Club. They had 5 courts, no lights. It was run by a guy named Ken Stewart. And the club you had to be a 4.0 USGA level player to be a member of the club. And then you paid $100 a month, and they would give you matches anytime you wanted. And I did that for 3 years of my tennis. That was right after Sam Olsen and Mark Walpole period. And so I just played match after match after match. I played 2 a day for a while. I mean, there was at least a couple days a week I was doing that. So I was playing 5 or 6 matches a week practice.
Adult and juniors?
Mostly adults.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then I was able to, it was a big deal at 18 or 17, win the 5-0 UST, or maybe I was, right around there, win the tournament at that club in the 5-0 division because it was real 5-0 level. And so that, I'm very thankful that they had that.
Yeah, for our listeners, the NTRP, National Tennis Rating Program, Dave, you'd remember this way back in the day, you had to go and be certified to be a rater. Then the next thing you know, it turned into self-rating. But the inconsistency of it was a lot of club pros, just to make their clientele feel good. If someone is a 3-0, they would tell them they were 3-5.
A true 5-0 would equate to about a 12 UTR now. If you were like, so at 17, you were winning a 5-0, and that would be a rock solid 12 plus UTR.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're a true 5-0, obviously Dallas is a country unto itself now, but it's pretty difficult to find other 5-0s. That's something that juniors, the parents listening. When you're playing down level, people just don't know how to play down level. You're playing someone, say someone's in the 18s, you're playing someone who's in 14s. You can, as you mentioned, Brandon, in your experiences, obviously you can play someone who's much younger than you. They're just a lights out, fantastic tennis player. But if you're playing someone who's at a lower level, even like to get your legs under you in a tournament, say, we're just going to go out and enjoy the first round. You just know you're going to win. But then there's that side note on the 10-point tiebreaker. You can't really say, well, I'll experiment the first set and play different ways because I know I'm not losing this. And then you just want the court time, especially if you're coming off an injury or you haven't been playing, just like on the pro tour.
I was curious to go back a little bit, Brandon, because, as you were transitioning, in the summers and the ones you didn't go to France, and when you were in college, when you were still, you had your 12 weeks in between, and you went back home to train and keep growing your game, you said, what did that look like? Because in my world anyways, up till 10 years ago, players that were a part of our environment growing up would be very active in it still in the summer. And then I think as people became less and less gutsy in terms of just putting it on the line, you see less of those college kids now integrate back into our program in the summers, and they will go out and do the traditional, find another college kid and hit and play a baseline game and call it a day. So what did your period like that look like between your freshman and senior year?
Yeah. So I have two perspectives on that. So I have mine, and then I have being at Advantage Tennis Academy for 12 years. That mine was, I had a coach who was a character coach, as Steve likes to call him, and he was in the military. His name is Andreas, and he was really he was pushing me to keep playing, and so he was a big motivator during those summers. So I'd go back and work with him, and a lot of the kids would come out. So we'd have a group that would come out from wherever. We would hit with whoever. I mean, the kids that were in high school would hit with that group, and some of the guys coming back from college would hit. And so there was still a lot of training and a lot of organization going on, which kept me in a system that I had hours out on the court. And so I disagree with players that try to piecemeal it together in the summer, because they are not going to get enough hours. I mean, you could try. I just think that being part of something is better. That's the personal opinion. And then at Advantage, we had a lot of the kids come back in the years that they were, that I was there. But it seems like now you might be right in the last, I haven't been at Advantage for the last 8 years or as much as an academy. And so I don't see those kids coming back. They do their own thing. They hit here or there. Yeah.
One thing off that, Dave's a great question, is the Intercollegiate Tennis Association. they had a final at the end of the year. I would say it would be the weakest college national title, but you could earn points to qualify. But the one thing that happened with the ITA is that we were recommending juniors to play it, and they would say, and one thing that was nice that you mentioned it with the French system, like say in North Carolina, there's like four tournaments in North Carolina, 4 weeks in a row. But what happened was no one was playing the backdraw matches. So again, coming back to match count and just getting experience. I don't know where that is right now with the ITA and how successful those tournaments are, but
they changed it during COVID. When it began, pre-COVID, everybody was kind of thrust into the draws. There weren't quite as many juniors playing it, and but now it's become just a flighted tournament. So when you're right on that, say you're a 10 UTR trying to bust in, you seldom get to play any 10, 5 and above because it's flighted, it's segregated again in a negative way. It's lost its original meaning.
I tell a lot of kids that visit from the northern climes, say Minnesota, wherever, Quebec, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and on, is that why don't you do this at least part of the week? You obviously want us to support your coach and take your private lessons and go to junior development, but purchase court time late at night and play matches and call anybody and everybody to play. Because I think so many kids are growing up indoors here in the U.S. They're drilling with 6 people on a court, and then they go off to a tournament. They never really played. They've gone, say, 4 weeks before the tournament, they haven't played. They've just been drilling. Yeah, the idea to get more match play. But from France, then you played where you got ATP points. Tell us about that and all your travels.
Yeah, so I wanted the ITA summer circuit. I did that for 2 summers, and a guy named Adam Webster and I won the free trip to play in Virginia Beach and play at the National, and it was a big deal. There was a lot of good guys playing in those summer circuits. There were no juniors allowed, though, if I remember right.
Yeah,
but that was the first years they did them. Yeah, they were good.
I do think that when they did allow juniors, I don't think the juniors were really making it to the final playoff, the invitational program or the invitational event. I know my son Connor, he played the ITA National. He had sprained his ankle badly. I mean, he's already an All-American, but he was leaving Florida State to go to Ohio State, and it turns into a Ty Tucker story. So my son Connor, he won the doubles at the, however he qualified. Perhaps he qualified because of his junior ranking or something. But he maybe got a wild card. But he won the doubles, and I think it was the semis. But he thought he did really well because he hadn't been playing. And anyway, the story is that Ty Tucker, that particular weekend, I think it was Ohio State played. And the players collectively were there, played a half dozen. They say they played 6 tiebreakers and they only won 1 or something. So, Ty was really upset with their tiebreaker record. And anyway, I remember the guys were hearing the sermon from Ty, and they just said to Connor, "Welcome to Ohio State tennis." Because they overall as the group did well, but Ty was just focused on. Hey, we played 6 tiebreakers and only won 1. But yeah, but certainly for me, somebody I sent out to David's place, kid who did, I think he was an 11 by the time he was, maybe a sophomore in high school. We couldn't get him to really force, but his parents, Rush Ganji, his parents didn't have residency, so he couldn't play in national tournaments. We sent him to an adult tournament where he got a silver ball, I believe, in doubles. And he went 3 sets with the player, Eric Heckman, who's been a hitting partner with Serena Venus Williams for a long time. And of course, it was junior tennis. He didn't know who anybody was, and he ended up playing a really good player. I think that's one of the things about being able to go overseas, and that really helped my son. He went to Sweden and he won a respectable tournament, and he went in unseeded. No one certainly knew who he was, but he didn't know who anyone else was. I think a lot of times a kid will look at a draw sheet, and if they're seeded 9, they're not going to get to the quarters.
I know. This is one of my pet peeves on the whole junior, looking up the UTR ranking, looking up who's who beat who. It just doesn't help you. Even if they're supposed to win the match, then you're out there supposed to win the match. You're not thinking about playing tennis.
Yeah, what they do with the Battle of Boca, when you sign up, and it's a great service in many ways, is every weekend. I recently visited the Battle of Boca. I have a 2-year period where I was there almost every weekend. And when you sign up, you're just not on the draw, but on the sign-up sheet, your UTR is listed. So here up in the mountains, we have 16 clay courts, and I'm telling the general manager, he said, well, if you want to have people come, you could have a UTR event every weekend. If you just had 2, say 8 and above, 8 and below. But if you have the players will come because they're going to look at the draw sheet. That's a lingo I think that's gone away. It used to be at tournaments and when tennis recruiting.net, was it blue chip and 5-star, 4-star, 3-star? When that took over from just what is your sectional ranking, you'd hear the kids go, I had a really tough draw. I had to play 4-star. They would know ahead of time who they were playing. But Dave, why don't you go ahead and ask Brandon a question?
Well, Brandon, on Southern Cal, every area of the country kind of has its own vibe in a way with junior tennis. Here in a lot of Texas, not so much in Houston, where it's a little bit more of just a small pocket with a coach and doing one-on-one and kids arranging matches. How would you describe, I obviously know about the advantage and that relationship, but the typical kid that's on a path to play D1 tennis in SoCal right now.
Yeah.
What does their week look like? Because some places are programs and then plus individual things like that. But everybody I speak to out there gives a different report. So could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes. So I think it depends on the area. So Houston sounds a little like Los Angeles.
Yeah.
People do private lessons. If you drive 15, let's say 2 miles, sometimes it can take a half hour, or 15 miles is going to take an hour and a half. So it's hard to get kids together in Los Angeles area. Orange County is very good for groups. We'll have kids actually drive down from LA to do groups in Orange County. Just everybody gets together more.
Yeah.
Do they play enough matches? Probably not. It's more like, let's play some team singles. Let's do some drills that are situational. But at least they're playing points with other kids. So the Orange County area, I know that well because that's where I'm at. But I feel like that's why there's more kids coming out of this area, especially Irvine. Mm-hmm. Irvine has 98 public courts in the city, 28 courts that I was the director of tennis at that club at one facility. And then you take Newport and within 10 minutes is Newport. And there's other cities around that area. There's a lot of courts. And so it's easier for people to get together. I think that it's still a little bit on the private lesson. Let's not play too many of the guys below us. They might catch us kind of mindset, mm-hmm. which I never like. But I wish we would get more adults playing kids. That's kind of what that used to happen when I was a kid, and now it doesn't happen as much. I don't know if that's the same in Texas, but so the only option they have is the tournaments. Well, sometimes match play at the club and playing a set, but not a lot of full match, 2 out of 3 sets, and that kind of training.
In California, why do you think the youth versus veteran match, kids playing adults, why do you think that's faded away?
I don't know why it's faded away, except for it's just maybe the coaches are involved in that a little bit.
I think even youth versus youth sparring gone away. in a casual manner. I think that people in general don't spar, but yeah, I think the youth versus. I mean, I'm trying to resuscitate it and keep it alive here every day.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Dallas has so many great adult players.
Dave, when
I think kids don't spar.
David, when you told me in Dallas, and you've been there for so many years now, I know LA's got better weather year round than Dallas. It does get chilly in Dallas a few months of the year. But yeah, in LA, Brandon just mentioned is that so many times the coaches there's a lot more just private courts. There's not as many large facilities, correct, as there are in Orange County?
Yeah, there's a lot of private courts there. There's, like you said, there's not a lot of private. There are a few clubs. They're just really hard to get to if you live 15 minutes away or 15 miles from them. So
yeah, and
our limit is traffic.
In the LA setting where the coaches are working on private courts, having visited many times, is a lot of times the privates become 2 hours because of traffic. And again, I think that at the end of the month, for the parents listening and the players, is how many sets have you played? And play anybody and everybody while making phone calls. Let's go way back though. With in the summers, your dad's a school teacher, so did he travel, and was he part of your tennis in the summer early on when you were coming up?
Yeah, he was part of my tennis my whole career. He's a very enthusiastic person, and so he was very into me winning, and he was passionate about that. He was always there for me on training, and if I wanted to go out and do more, that's always a tough one.
But unlike your mother, if she was a nurse, so a school teacher has the summers off, correct?
Yeah. I mean, the summers, yes. He had the summers off, and he was able to travel, and we went to tournaments, and I'm an only child, so it was a little bit easier to do these tournaments with everybody.
Yeah. No, we can circle back anytime, but tell us about the progression. So when did you start mixing in, traveling outside of France in the U.S. and playing ATP events?
Yeah. So the France was one of the first summers outside of the U.S. and outside of I was done with college. I will backtrack. Right before that, and I didn't know anything about futures and how they worked. There were still satellites at this time, but only a few. But I went to these futures in Jamaica. And I don't know if you guys remember this time, but there was maybe 20 of them in a year.
I remember that.
Mm-hmm. And the Russell family was putting them together. And you would go from like nice hotel to nice hotel each week. And it was all inclusive. And it was expensive, and it was a big trip. Well, I went out, and we didn't do the all-inclusive. We stayed in a apartment in Montego Bay. And I played I had played a satellite in Southern California, but never a future. I was more into playing at this point. And the qualifying in Southern California has 4 rounds. These qualifyings were 2 rounds. And one guy was a Jamaican, kid that maybe was just trying to play a little bit of tennis. And then you play the last round of qualies as somebody probably pretty good that played college tennis somewhere. So my first tournament, I made the main draw there. It was a 10K, and I got a wild card kid, and everybody's like, "You got a wild card kid. You're going to get your first point in your first tournament playing." And everybody was like jealous, and they were telling me how I'm going to beat this guy badly. The kid's name was Dustin Brown. So I go out, and he's about 6'5", lanky. I'm 21. I would say he was probably 18. He probably was. I didn't know anything about him. So I go out there, and I'm expecting to win. And the kid serving probably 120. It was a great match. I had 3 match points for my first point. I choked on all of them. He didn't choke. He choked less than me, and he beat me 8-6 in the third set tiebreaker. And I played the 3 tournaments there, made the main draw, all of them, lost first round, got some decent guys in some of the rounds. I went through, I think, 11 main draws without getting a point.
Looking back at that, did you catch Dustin Brown on a good day or a bad day for Dustin?
I don't know.
No, actually, he was brought up in Germany, Barsinghausen, Germany, with Kim and Scott Winberg. You get a kick out of this, you and Yvonne. Remember their logo was an elephant, but the name of the program was the All California Tennis Academy, and it was in Germany. And Dustin grew up, and Raven Klaassen and Austin Krajicek are 2 people I worked with who played with Dustin. And, one of the reasons he did well is he ate at McDonald's. It's like, he was just, it was like, I know that he's done well in real estate, but all these years later, he beat Nadal at Wimbledon. I was running this camp in Germany, and it was, Scott Winberg came in, and it's a fun story. So actually, it really helped launch, you know him, David, from the Brain Game, O'Shaughnessy.
Yeah, O'Shaughnessy, yeah.
Craig O'Shaughnessy. So they played college tennis. This is bringing Yvonne, and Yvonne played college tennis at Saddleback. So Scott Wittenberg and O'Shaughnessy played at Saddleback. So they're at Wimbledon, and Dustin Brown beats Nadal. So anyway, then after that, Scott brought his son to have me evaluate his tennis game. Sam in Germany, Dustin Brown. But I know my son Connor had a win over him and a loss over him, and Dustin can play, lights out, like the way he plays and the risks he takes. But hats off to the Wittenbergs for getting him to go forward. That's a fun story though.
Yeah, I mean, he would rip his forehand. Backhand was a little suspect. So I didn't break him, I don't think, much. I might have broken one match or one game. But at 18, he was serving pretty big.
So he
was not consistent at all.
Yeah. What was, high risk player? What was Jamaica like?
Oh man, it was, I would say 90 degrees, probably 95 and 80% humidity.
Did you play at Half Moon Bay?
Yes. Yep, I think that's where one of those tournaments was at Half Moon.
You'd have to tell me. I mean, I've never been to Jamaica, but I work for a company. This is a hats off to Vic Braden. So, All American Sports wanted me to go to Jamaica and run this program. If you weren't married, you couldn't work with juniors. That was one of their policies. So they want to send me to run an adult camp, and I'm not even 25 years old, but you could only teach the Jamaicans, and I was just told that there was some resentment to have an outsider come in, but also at that time I didn't think I was qualified to go in and train the teachers. But then I, shortly afterwards, I think of the age is 24. Then I found myself out in California. But after I worked with Vic, I'd already been trained by Welby Van Horn and Dennis Vandenberg. But after I spent, in fact, one of the last times you and I were together is that we went out to dinner with Vic. But we were right out there in Southern Cal, and so I had a pretty good handle on it. But so Jamaica, I always think about Half Moon Bay. That's the place where I don't know if they're still doing it, but we've had a lot of pros go. You can go on vacation, and they don't cover your flights and they don't cover your drinks, but they'll cover everything else. You get a free hotel, free food, but you just have to give a 1 hour clinic per day. So I know, several people I've trained have done that at Half Moon Bay. Did you do that a couple times or just that one stint in Jamaica?
I went to Jamaica twice.
Yeah.
And, I didn't, it was a lot of main draws without a lot of points coming home. And so if I jump ahead here, I went there. Then I decided to do a trip to Asia. And so this was after France, and I played the Midwest circuit, and I played a few of the U.S. Circuits, and I was beating people that were pretty good, but I was never putting it together enough to build that confidence and this, I think everybody that knows that has gotten an ATP point, that once you get one, it's like something's lifted off your back. The weight is gone. Especially at my level, I was a guy that was fighting for him. But I went to China and I'm playing a satellite, and I'm traveling with this guy named Goran Dragicevic and a couple guys. There were American guys, and I got to the main draw the first week. I won a round of the main draw the second week. All I had to do in the third week was make it to the main draw to get 2 ATP points. I'm in the last round of qualies. I'm down 6-2, and I'm down. It's like 4-all or 4. I'm down a little bit, and the guy Goran, who's a great player, he yells at me, "Pull your head out of your A," and totally turned my match around. And that was where I got my first two ATP points. I won that match, and then you play the Masters for the last week. They don't have those anymore. They got rid of the satellite thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I bring that story up because I was going to quit tennis after that was my first year and a half. I was not going to play any more of the ATP events or ITF to get points, just because I was feeling like I was wasting some money traveling.
Sampras, Tim Gullickson had passed away, and Jim Courier said, "Hey, we can do this tomorrow." And Courier tells a story now. He woke up the sleeping giant, and Sampras came back and he beat Sampras. With your work with Sam Olsen and Mark Walpole, tell us about doubles. Were you having more success in doubles because you could volley?
I wouldn't say I'm a great volleyer. No, I didn't have a lot of success. The time I spent with them, we did more on my serve and ground strokes. We spent a little bit of time on my volleys. I should have stayed with them longer, but we didn't know that.
Right.
And my dad, he would always ask for deals on lessons. And so those guys weren't, they probably did give us a deal. I just know that the affordability factor was there for everything we did.
Right.
And so the lessons, I'm pretty sure I went for 1 hour a week. And it's really hard, both you guys know, that to change things and see the person every 7 days.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So that was one of the factors of probably not developing my full game. My volleys got pretty good. And this is the reason I work on volleys with people, is because they got pretty good, but they never were a huge part of my game. Because at 14, 15, you need to be able to come forward. If you wait till you're 18 or in college to learn how to volley, it's not part of who you are.
No, I saw one of your demos on getting ready for this podcast on the forehand volley, looking good. Short swing, elbow raise, square the racket out, move forward.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I think we could all say that I wish how's it go? I wish I knew then how's it go? Help me out, guys.
I wish I knew now what I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, then what I know now. Yeah.
Yeah. With 33 countries, did you play any club team tennis in Germany?
I did. I played in Marburg, Hessenliga, which is 3rd division. That was when I was coaching at San Diego State. I went over there and played, but it wasn't at the time when I was playing a lot. So I had that experience for a little bit, but I wish I would have played that more too.
So how long did you go before you said, okay, I'm going to make this transition to coaching? 33 countries, that's a long journey.
So I'm always one of these guys that loves to learn and ask questions to people. And that's why I love the system with you guys. And there's so much information. So I asked one of the coaches that his name's Hugh Bream. I don't know if you guys know him. He's definitely a legend in California. He was at Cal Poly, and he had coached a lady named Ginger Helgeson, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
yeah.
So he had been in that world. So I asked him, "Hey, when do you know when you're done playing?" And he says, "You'll know when when you know. It's that you know it. You're done when you're done." And so I kept playing till I knew I was definitely not wanting to train every day, and I wanted to have some stability at home and try to have, a regular life. And so I played from about 2001 at the beginning of 2002 to the end of 2004. So about 3 years I got to be out there, which was a great experience.
It's so difficult financially too to swing that on.
Yeah. But I felt like I got my fill. And so I came home and played some futures whenever they were close, or played some men's open. But I started coaching, and Jimmy Johnson gave me a job.
Yeah, it was before we get to that with Jimmy, playing pro tennis and the war of financial attrition. What do you think could be done for American kids so they could play more? I think what you did to go to France, for example, you can play more tennis, and that's when my son was maybe say 16, he played on a club team. You're so fortunate to do that in Germany. What do you think needs to be done to, so we're at 60%, a little bit more for men and women, foreign players. What do you think we need to do to create more match play in the U.S.? Please jump in, Dave, on that one too.
Okay. Well, the one question is, how do we get more money to these players? I wish I knew the answer, but I did it a way that was very conservative. I would win an open tournament, and I would have enough money to travel for 2 or 3 weeks. And then my parents would help me a little bit with a flight, and then I would use that money. And so then I would come home and train for a bit, and then there would be another open tournament somewhere, and I would try to win that. And so I was one of the better guys in Southern California for that level for open tournaments. And so that really helped. So I think the money tournaments are helpful outside of playing pro, which is also the French system as well. There's money there. And I'll say one more thing about the French system. It's not the end all, but this club helps the player travel, and they'll pay for their travel if they stay in the club and they're part of the community. We don't have that in the U.S. It's more private, and there's not a lot of give back in that way.
And the money tournament you played it wasn't big money. I mean, I know, Dave, you first started running in East Texas. I remember you running money tournaments. But go ahead, Dave. Why don't you chime in on this one?
Well, no, it was in the late 80s, and I think we had 5,000 actually total prize money at the end of them. But yeah, 1 year shortly after retirement, the now passed away Peter Doohan, playing Scott Stewart. It drew all the, the futures ultimately are kind of like good D1 tennis, entry level pro tennis, and then you'll get a couple of outliers inside of there. But as far as match play, I know we've talked about it here before, and on the professional level, I think it's a simple solution of using the facility in Carson and the facility in Nona, and because you used a word in there, Brandon, that when you won these open tournaments and it would pay for your flight, if we structured USTA or futures tournaments outside of out in those two venues, Carson, and we used our national centers for that more than recruiting players from programs to come out there and train, and they were just centralized spots for tournaments in the United States, so that a player like you, instead of you could have certainly blended France as well, but you could have played 12 weeks in a row without having to leave Carson, and flew out to Nona and stayed, rented a Airbnb for 12 weeks, even though they didn't have them back then. But it's just too spread out. In America, the system, and it's all within the borders of our country. We just have a really big country, and we have two facilities that, in my opinion, are being wasted. And in regard to player development, I know they host a lot of other things out in Nona and such, but with juniors, it's a different animal, I think. This week, the Brewer Cup is a big event going on right now in the USTA. And you have kids traveling to Mobile, Alabama from all over for that. And they left on Thursday. They'll use Friday as the team practice day. They play one singles match and one doubles match every day, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. One single and one double, and that's it. And that's some of the best juniors in America. And I mean, I just don't see the purpose of it. But it's a great event, and it's a team event. It can inspire and build some passion into the tank for the kids. But I have another kid that I kind of said, hey, you just stay here. Because we have those money tournaments now every other week. There's a really good UTR event. And the young 15-year-old who stayed here, he lost in the semis this morning to a 13-5 UTR. And there were 4 or 5 of them in the draws. And, that's equivalent to the semis and finals of the boys 18s at Kalamazoo. And in fact, this kid in the other side of the draw was a finalist at the zoo in doubles. But, they're 30 years old now. But so he had to pay gas money to drive 15 miles, an entry fee, which was refunded basically because he wins $100 for getting to the semis, and sleeps in his own bed. And, there's ways to do it cheap, no matter where we are, if people are resourceful. But on the pro level, I think the answers are on East and West Coast, with massive facilities that are going to waste, in my opinion.
I think there should be a book with Federer quotes. Come on, you got to be able to listen to Roger. Where Roger said about coaching, I had the right coaches at the right time. I know people will say that about success, is I'm being in the right place at the right time. A couple of players from Battle of Boca approached me, and they had trained with you, Dave, and I'm watching them play, and you're exchanging pleasantries, and it's like, you're in the wrong place. You need to go back to Dallas. Actually, when I first was in Tyler, Texas, I remember being told the kids in Tyler cannot compete with the kids in Dallas. And I thought that's nonsense. But back in those days, why we, did very well, and because we were given the trust, the loyalty, but the people didn't. It's like when I was a kid, you just didn't get on, you just didn't jump on airplanes all the time. It was just like, okay, you just go from one bus station to the next. But, I think we Americans, how we could deal with, like say in Europe, where the people are loyal to their club and they really play. And of course, it's just, if you think about like the tennis Europe tournaments, tennis in America is more cityfied than countryfied. In other words, these kids, there's talent everywhere. You get 330 million plus people. But people have this idea that, well, you have to, you can't be a tennis player unless you go to Florida. You can't be a tennis player unless you go to California. Canadians used to have this inferiority complex. We have to lead Canada. But some of the immigrants had done really well. Now the Canadians realize, hey, we don't have to go to Florida. We just stay here and train. But it is to get to the tournaments. But I don't think you have to necessarily change your locale where you're living.
Brandon, in your era, when you were 15, 16, I was on some boards. I remember seeing stats that the average California junior was logging like 3 times the amount of actual tournament matches per year compared to the rest of the sections in America, even, Texas, Florida. That by the end of the year, it was significantly higher amount of tournament matches, and they seldom, had many times they could drive back to their own house.
Oh, yeah.
Is that how you remember it?
I do. I remember we had tournaments every weekend, and they were within, it's still the same in certain ways, that everything's pretty centralized to Orange County, a little bit outside of LA, which is Thousand Oaks area.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the tournaments are in Orange County, and they're full of, you're getting, 100 people going for the 32 draw of a level 5 for one age division. But yes, I remember playing 100 matches in a year.
Yeah.
No, I think with people would think of California, well, a large population, all sorts of sunshine, obviously, a wealthy state with all sorts of facilities. But the level 2s and level 3s, people in Southern Cal, definitely people in Florida as well. I think Texas, I think those 3 sections, it's like Winston Churchill said that, democracy is not perfect. But I think the sections that wanted to have these level 2s and level 3s were, get your checkbook out and, people, they weren't playing backyard tennis. They weren't staying within their section. There's just so many things. I mean, there's people that are on the same high school team. Dave, you said, junior with junior, said it as junior with veteran is, like how many times you're on a high school tennis team, how many times did you play sets with so-and-so? When you were at Dana Point, when you're on a high school team way back when, I mean, did you have challenge matches and did you just unsupervised matches with your teammates, Brandon?
Yeah, we did. I was lucky enough to have a pretty good team though. And so we would play matches in practice. That was definitely a part of the practice. And I don't know if they were unsupervised, but we definitely did set play as the practice part more than we did let's drill and do dead ball drills, even though you need them still as well. But and then we were getting, so the match, I was playing teams in Irvine, Newport. We're pretty close. We're 20 minutes from them, 30 minutes. And so there was a lot of the high school matches were actually pretty tough, like we talked about before.
Let me say this for our listeners. Dead ball, there's 2 definitions. I'm always telling people the worse the balls, the better the program, because if people are hitting bunches of balls, your tennis balls wear out. But a dead ball also is where the coach is feeding the ball to you, or tossing the ball to you, and it's not a live ball. You're not interacting with players on the other side of the net. And that's something too that's going away is people's static balance and just isolating, working on a stroke. Back to your journey, back to your progression. So you went to Cal Poly once you decided. Cal Poly. You were finishing up your degree because you lost credits in the transfer. Tell us about going to San Diego State. How'd that work out?
Yeah, so I worked with Jimmy for a stint there, and then San Diego State was hiring, and I applied for it, and I was able to secure the assistant coaching job there, and it was a pretty good gig. It paid $30,000 a year, which was pretty good for an assistant job. This is in 2006, 5 or 6, right around there. Season was 2006. And so I went down there and was driving 65 miles each way to do it, but I would stay down there twice a week. And I did that for 2.5 seasons.
Yeah.
But
did you enjoy that? I mean, why didn't you not stay with the college route? You would have obviously played college tennis.
I know that's the question that you have to think about long term here. I only wanted to stay in Southern California.
Okay.
There were 4 jobs I'd want to take, or 5. They don't usually open up. Still, the San Diego State job didn't open up. Gene's still there and doing a good job. And I wasn't ready to leave Southern California to come back, like a lot of the coaches do. So I went back. So I stayed in that world for a little bit. And one of the things I remember thinking to myself was, I wanted to be able to help those guys with their swings when they weren't playing well. And I wanted to be able to confidently say, here's what you need to do when you're not playing good tennis. Or, just to help them enough to get them to the next level so they knew what I knew what I was talking about, and I could relay that to them. And that's why when I went back to Jimmy's and Advantage, I actually came out to visit you. I think it was like 2008, maybe 2009. So anyways, that's where that longing to learn and keep getting better as a coach started. And I mean, you know,
well,
with those guys.
It probably was pretty easy for our listeners. Jimmy Johnson, I met him the same day I met Dave Anderson in 1985. But it was his brother Joey who played tennis at Tyler Junior College, and they were certainly a powerhouse, winning national championships. And the older brother convinced the younger brother to be part of our program, or part of our program for tennis teachers. But Sam Olson was the first one. He was first, and now he's done so well in real estate. You know, he didn't stay within tennis for that long, but so you knew the connection with Jimmy, that because Jimmy, he was like the private. You know, he was one of the I don't know, foot soldiers. He went out there. He did a mission with the LDS Church, and he went out. But there was, I think, at one time as many as 12 people working for Sam Olson. They had 2 clubs, and then a third. They were trying to get a third club. And I remember, certainly being in on that because they were coming from this program I ran. But so you made that connection early on that Jimmy was connected with Sam and Mark, or were they still around?
I remember Jimmy being there when I was in high school with Sam and Mark. He had just got there, and they were working him pretty hard. I remember, I still have the vision of that club back then. And so I think that connection was still there.
So after being in San Diego State for the few years you were there, what you said 2 years, with then you went full time with Advantage Tennis. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, so Jimmy had a full-time live-in tennis academy in Irvine at the club called Racquet Club of Irvine. There were 28 courts at the club. We took the courts at 11 a.m. On the back 6, and then we could spread out a little bit more as time went on. And we would do then lunch, and then we would do another session so we did 11 to 1 and then 2 to 4. And then we did fitness. And at one point we had 40 full-time kids doing homeschool and then within the area, and living maybe about 15 to 20 kids maybe living in the housing at the max. And it was a pretty good program that we all kind of talked the same language, which was nice.
Well, a couple of things, golden nuggets, all these little things add up for people listening. If a young coach, old coach, they go to a private tennis club, a lot of private tennis clubs are empty from, say, 11 o'clock to 3 o'clock. I remember one time being out there to train the coaches, and Jimmy said, why don't you just go outside and to do a little Q&A with the coaches, and we'll start up in half an hour or whatever, 45 minutes. So I go out, and Jimmy comes out and, got the smile, great personality. He says, Steve, can I talk to you for a minute? And I said, yeah, what's up? He goes, that's the wrong group of coaches. Because at that time, there was 3 that's a facility with clay and 28 courts. So I was talking to the wrong group of coaches. With
I do. I remember that. I think you were talking to the other group. Yeah. It was on the other row, right next to us.
But another thing too that Jimmy put together, all the people helping him out, yourself, Dave Secker, remember Mahmoud. What was Mahmoud's last name?
Kareem.
Yeah, that you guys could issue an I-20 visa. Now, I've been told that one of the most highly reputable homeschool programs is Laurel Springs, and that if someone is now registered with Laurel Springs, they can get an I-20 visa. And because I've been really taking the role for a long, long time as a supplemental coach, where people send me someone for 3 weeks or 3 months, and 3 months the foreign players can only come in for 3 months, and there's many times it'd be much better if they could come in. It all comes down to helping the tennis parent out, where they don't have to buy airplane tickets, where they have to come in and then leave the country, and then have to wait for a certain period of time before they can come back, and how many times they can be here per year. Because once you have that I-20, that's international student visa, that was very good for that organization to put that together.
Yeah, that helped us a lot. When I first got there, it was mostly Southern California kids and a few kids from the Intermountain. But once we got the I-20s, we got them kids from all over coming to train. Russia, Azerbaijan, China. It was definitely a game changer.
That's a lot of kids. That's a lot of responsibilities. And the housing was not right there on site. Some of it was, but some of it wasn't, correct?
Right. Yeah, it was across the street basically, but down the street. So yeah, it wasn't the easiest.
Yeah.
That part is not, I would say that's the least fun. Taking care of kids that are their parents send away for, a summer or for a year.
I know you'd have students, graduate students from University of UC Irvine, and they would. You had a lot of as your programming. Because I went out there to train the coaches several times, where it's like, okay, I'm staying in these apartments, or I'm in this townhouse, and you'd stay at Jimmy's place, but they'd have, like, say, a 3-bedroom place, and it would be 2 bedrooms for juniors. I mean, there's where there's a will, there's a way, but to make it work for an academy. But yeah, the student visa is certainly something that can make it international.
Yeah. And yeah, so it was a lot of these academies now. I mean, there's one called Weil in Ojai, and they have their own housing. The owner, Mark, he owns the club. I think he partly owns the club, and so that really helps in making it a little more stable.
One thing makes it tough in the academy. So say someone from wherever, they're going to make their way to sunny California, and they show up and they really have holes in their game, but they came there really to train with better players and play tournaments of where they,
right.
Then also, being Southern Cal, it's like, okay, I'm here to play tournaments. The players are here. I remember I had many conversations with Jimmy and Joey about that, how difficult it is to try to convince someone that they need to slow down and go back to the drawing board a little bit. Could you comment on that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's basically what we were doing, is trying to fight that battle of, it's going to take you 3 months, but it'll be worth it in the long run. Well, I'm only coming for a semester. Well, maybe we can make that a year, and you can work for 1 semester on your game, and then the next semester you can train and get better and play tournaments. And it's not easy. And so then there was always sometimes a compromise going on. Hey, let's just work on 1 stroke and get that one better. And then that'll take a little less time. And then we can, at least you're going to be getting your backhand better or your serve. And then you can play more. It was hard, as you guys know, to balance that. Let's work on things and play tournaments at the same time if we're really going to make a change.
Yeah.
I think we tell people when they walk through the door for that initial evaluation, and I credit Coach Andreas, who's with me. He looks at these people and he's just got this serious look, and he said, "You're already here for the wrong reason." He said, "You're here because there's kids that can beat your kid." He goes, "That's not why you should be here."
That's great.
And but he's 100% right. It's yeah, Mark Weil is good friends with one of his investors, was a club member here, and I remember him when he was just going to get ready to launch that years ago, and he came through and spent a week observing, and he's done well. They just did a lot of renovation, I heard, or added a lot on, or did some nice new things to that area.
Yeah, they've been at a long time. Well, they've been at a long time. Dave, say that one more time. Andres, explain that. Just, I know you did it clearly, but just do it one more time.
Yeah, no, I mean, he looked at parents, and if you've ever eyeballed him, he says it with the complete, he's dead serious. And he said, "You're here, for the wrong reason. You're here at our academy for the wrong reason. You're here because you think there's tennis players here who can beat your kid, but you need to be here for the reasons that got those kids to beat your kid, which is developing skills, developing character, and one thing with Jimmy, I remember speaking with him about 4 or 5 years ago. We've kept in touch since as well. But he made a great comment. He said it's at a point in American junior tennis where he doesn't even bother doing an evaluation with the kids anymore. He just does it with the parents because he'd rather see if they're going to fit into the environment. And I think he was being kind of sarcastic, but it is so true. The kids are tough. If they don't have a lot of interference at home, they can handle here and this and that. But if there's interference at home, the whole process is just so slowed down.
One thing for myself, we have a pretty captive audience. When people are sent to work with us, they pretty much have been told. And I can understand if you live in Dallas and people are going to bop and shop, or if you're in Orange County, people bop and shop. So that's where we just, we'll do an overhaul right now. Because they're a captive audience. They got on an airplane, they rented a car, they're not going home to their own bed. So they're really, our former students, but basically explain to them, you really need to take some time out with that. Brandon, tell us about some of the coaches you worked with. I think one you could start with would be Dave Secker. I mean, obviously he's doing really well. He's gone from junior tennis, to college tennis. What are your thoughts on how they've done, why they've done so well?
Yeah, I think obviously he was a very talented guy, and he would get information. He would take it in and be able to process it and then use it pretty fast, which is an important skill in coaching. And he came to our academy, and I know he mentioned this in his interview, but he stayed with me the first week or two, him and his wife. And then I kind of told him that we're basically kind of on the same system, which makes it easier for everybody. So we all talk the same language out here. And he bought right in. It didn't happen with everybody. And then he took it and ran and just, started developing kids and was really into it. He brings a lot of energy. And so I'm assuming that he brought that same energy to the next thing, which was NC State. And he had a good foundation for coaching as well.
Yeah. I know Jimmy, he certainly had some really high profile players. And you've certainly, you had continuity as some people who worked there for a number of years, but I do think that, a lot of times people come in and they don't think they need to be trained as coaches. What do you comment on that?
Yeah. I don't really understand that. So I don't know why they would think that coming in, except for maybe they have so much experience and so much success that they are closed-minded. I don't know, but I think that I just felt like everybody that came into us was ready to learn a little bit, and they wanted to be on a team, and they wanted to be around good players. And so that kind of led us to keep talking as a group. I don't know if everybody bought into everything, but they definitely were. We were all kind of on the same page when I was working there. And that was always nice. That's what I enjoyed in that.
I know you got big time world. You got big time people skills, but for 12 years you did a lot of the paperwork too. I mean, you did a lot of the admin. Is that right?
I did a lot of. I didn't do as much admin as I did recruiting.
Recruiting, okay.
So I did a lot of recruiting. I did a lot of communication. I did a lot of running of programs and building programs. We had a full-time program, but we had an after-school program as well that I was in charge of. And then I went back to the full-time program. I was in charge of that.
Brandon, can you define recruiting before you finish or after you finish?
Yeah. So recruiting is, I would invite people to come and train with us. I would keep communication with other coaches and say, hey, listen, send them to us for a year your student, and we'll work with, a lot of them I knew from before. And so they would send people to us. We would go to tournaments and people would see us, and I would be a friendly face and communicate with people and tell them about our program. So that was kind of that end, but I'm pretty good at keeping after it and reaching out without getting discouraged. So I've always been pretty good at that. I don't want to steal kids from other coaches. That's not the goal, but to communicate with those coaches as well. So there was
you were a spokesperson for the academy.
Yeah, exactly.
Have some of the other coaches, gone to college tennis, or they've gone and run their own academies? Are you in touch with some of the coaches that over a 12-year period that you worked with?
Yeah, there's a few that stay in Southern California and are doing really well and run their own academy / after school junior program, or still in coaching. Some got out of coaching. I'm in touch with a few of them, and one moved. Kareem Mahmoud got an opportunity to go back to Egypt, and he's running a pretty good program over there. And so I got an opportunity to become a tennis director at the club we were at. And so I didn't stay with Advantage at the last, so I stayed there 12 years, but I didn't stay there those last few years.
Before you, we talked about, I think the next position, you were with a country club that's owned and operated by Truan, but I mean, you became the president of the USTA SoCal, correct?
Of Orange County, so District 6.
County. District, okay.
Not the whole one, not the whole Southern California district.
Tell us about your experience with that, working with the USPTA and being in a leadership role.
Yeah, I did it in 2011 through 2024, I think, right around that range. If I went into it now, I would be a different person. But my idea behind it was to get more high performance for the USTA and USPTA, and try to get some of those people to come out and speak at our conferences and be a part of our group. And I was at that time about 30. And so I was trying to get the under 30 group to be part of the USPTA. And so I had a couple goals with it. But I think that it was hard to get people to buy into that system. Sometimes when they're younger, they just want to do hidden lessons and make money, and they're not looking to go long term. Sometimes it was the feeling I got.
What about speakers? Certainly that was before pickleball. When you would run a conference, how did that go as far as selecting speakers, and how do you determine what topics they'll talk about?
Yeah, sometimes we left it to them. So we'd get a guy like David Nankin, and he was a Carson guy that worked with pros, and he would come out and talk about the drills they did. And then we would do a high school version of it the Saturday before, and I would speak at one of those, and then there'd be some of the coaches so a lot of times it was about drills. And then there was a couple coaches would talk about technique. But a lot of the coaches want 3-5 women's doubles drills, or they want things that they're going to use right away at the club and systems for that. So we were trying to give them what they wanted. And it's always hard to figure out the whole, of Southern California, what people want. But
if you were to do that now, what would you do differently?
I think I would have been more involved in trying to get more people together. We would focus on the conference, but getting people, there was one guy that did this in Buena Park area, and he would get everybody together on Mondays and do training for coaches for free. And so, I mean, I could do that now. I think that if I was part of it's now called the RSPA.
Right.
It's not the USPTA anymore. But yeah, I would be a little more involved, a little bit more of a leader, just because I've been now running clubs now I'm on my third club, being in a director role for the last, it's been now 8-9 years. I just know a little bit more about leadership.
Tell us about Troon.
So Troon is, they're, I worked at the country club for them. They are one of the largest management companies in the world now. I think they're number one. They bought Cliff Drysdale. They bought, what's the one they bought that is
Peter Burwash.
Yeah, thank you, Peter Burwash. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of systems in place. So we use UKG for payroll. We used certain software systems so everybody was in the same loop, and then they would have support, like for HR, or if the club's going to be sued, they would have attorneys on hand for helping with that. So there's a lot of good things there. The GM or so my GM would report to a manager of GMs, and he was amazing. There was a lot of good people in that program, that system. There was a lot of accountability. If the numbers weren't right, it was not good. So there was a lot of numbers driven business, talks. And then we did employee surveys. So the employees would judge me and give me feedback. And that was once a year. And then I would be able to give feedback to my GM as well. And then we did member surveys as well. So they wrote a lot about surveys, and the survey was daily on the members. So every morning I'd wake up and be looking at a survey that would say the tennis director is not doing his job, or he's great. So there was a lot of feedback, which can wear on you a little bit, but I was lucky enough to have decent feedback. And every program, like the food and beverage guy gets feedback. The golf, because I was at a golf and tennis, would get feedback. It was called Club IQ. And they send it out every day to 10 members.
Say that again one more time. Club Q.
Lots of systems.
What is it? Club Q? Club IQ?
Club IQ. Yeah.
So what would they do? If
that's a survey done by the members, Brandon?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. That's a good tool.
Yeah. And it's sent out in the morning. And the questions sometimes are really important, how they ask them, as you know, in every survey, but at least we're getting feedback.
And how many members did it go out to? The entire membership or limited?
No, it went out to a few per day.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And so every year you get one. You get to give your feedback each year for that.
Got it.
Dave Anderson, Club Corp, now called Invited. I used to always say that was the organization that controlled the most courts. I used to think it was approximately 200 clubs. But Troon now, I believe, which was first a golf organization, correct?
Troon was, yeah.
But now I think they have more courts than your corporation. How many clubs does Invited have?
With tennis courts, under 160, I think. But I think I just saw something on that with Troon, Lifetime, and because Lifetime was going to make a big swing into tennis prior to COVID. They were really, in fact, they built an incredible facility, didn't they, Brandon, in Laguna Nigel?
In San Clemente, which is about 10 minutes away from there.
Okay, yeah, I knew they built a really nice one out there, but they were headed that way where they were going to try to really go deep dive into tennis, but I think pickleball has sidetracked them. But I think Troon is up there in the numbers. I don't know, exactly court per court if Invited has more or Troon, but the primary difference is one is a management company and the other is an ownership. At present, correct?
Yeah. Troon for me was, I don't know exactly if they owned any clubs, but they were the middle person between me and the owner. The owner of my club that I was working at before, he owns 15 clubs, and he used them for all 15. So that was a big program, or that was a big client for them.
Yeah, Troon comes in and does a great job of setting up structure and organization and managing.
I think when they first took over Drysdale's, for example, Drysdale is really interesting. I worked with a lawyer that Drysdale worked with, and initially it was just traveling clinics, and he brought in English-speaking pros, a lot of South Africans, a lot of Aussies who could have some beers and could really interact. They did a great job. I remember observing more than one time. Drysdale initially started with clinics, and it just grew and grew. But Dave in Tyler, Texas, is a tennis and swim program, or tennis and swim club that's owned by Drysdale. Typically, and this is an opinion, that if someone has a country club job, and there's obviously country clubs from A to Z, and then you have to always think, where's the money go? What's the money trail? How does it work? I mean, some clubs are, you got to put $100,000 down to become a member, but some are pretty low key, and it can be a pretty cush job for the pro. But I do think when you work for a Troon, when you work for a corporation, I think of John Brecken, who's now he's not in tennis, but for the longest time he worked at the outfit that's based out of Minneapolis, Lifetime Fitness. And he has a liberal arts degree, and he goes, "Yeah, if you work for Lifetime Fitness, after a couple of years, you got a business administration degree." Was it like that for you? They made you more tuned into being a businessman?
Yeah, definitely. I was basically the GM of the tennis department, and had to know my numbers and had to manage everything. Obviously, the GM oversees everybody, including me. But the expectation was that I was going to run my business as a business.
Did they make you feel like you were back at Cal Poly studying?
I took a course with a guy named Mark McMahon.
Oh, yeah, I know Mark.
For 2 years. And it was called the CRSCE, Certified Racket Sports Executive. And so I was kind of into getting better at that area as well.
Is that through the USPTA? There's Mark's own organization?
It's Mark's own thing, but it's under the he's part of the USPTA or the RSPA umbrella. And as far as my understanding is that he works with them as well.
Dave, he was at Boca West when you and I were with Seguzo Bassett.
Yeah, I remember the name well. He was very active when it was called the USPTA for many years.
Right, he was at Boca West for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, big time skills in a lot of areas. And you do have to. A couple of weeks ago, we had Doug Cash on. I respect what you have to do with a briefcase. There's a lot of times that people, they don't make the transition from carrying the ball hopper to carrying the briefcase. But then we have people who they go to the briefcase side and they totally get disconnected with the ball hopper side. And so from there, how long were you there, and how was that progression, and where did you go from there?
So I just wanted to backtrack really quick because I didn't start there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I was at the club. No, you're good. I just.
That's right. That's right.
I'm going to make
Mr. Spearman.
A real quick point. Yeah, I was with Spearman at RCI. I worked with Advantage and was part of that group. And then the director of tennis, who I would ask questions, hey, what do you do? What's your day-to-day kind of thing? And I just wanted to learn from him. I kept asking him questions. He decided to leave, and he recommended me for the job. I knew I wanted to go in that direction a little bit. And what I did is I went to this conference for tennis directors, even though I wasn't one, in Boca, or not Boca, it was in Lake Nona. It was like the first one they put together, and AJ Pant was there.
Yeah.
And AJ's a good, he's obviously was running Lifetime for many years. And I said, hey, can I meet with you after for a little bit and just pick your brain on how I get into this job? And so I met with them, and I said, yeah, I've been in the junior world and the academy world only, and college tennis. And he said, you don't really have a chance. You need to start over and go back and work at a club and do the ladies and do the events and do all that stuff before they'll even look at your resume. And he was kind of right, but luckily it was maybe 6 months later that the RCI, the Racquet Club Irvine job opened, and they picked me to be the director of tennis with no experience and no adult experience, no event experience, just the academy. And so they kind of took a chance on me with that.
AJ Pant, that was very shrewd on your part. He was working with Tennis Corporation of America when I was. He was a younger guy, but certainly, so polished, so professional, how he climbed with it, up the ladder with the USPTA and PTR. I understand he's no longer the national director of Lifetime. Do you know what he's doing?
I think he's a consultant. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So you did that. So you followed his advice and went back to getting on a different sidetrack. So this is Mr. Spearman is still alive, correct?
Yes.
Older gentleman?
Mr. Spearman is 90, in late 90s range.
Knock on wood. That's great. So here's my story with him. I didn't know who he was. He didn't know who I was. So I'm at the club in Irvine, and he says, "Hi, how are you doing? What do you do?" And I said, well, "I fight ignorance every day." And so I just, that's how the conversation started. And so then I sat down, started talking to him, and it was just a timing thing. So then by the time I said, "What do you do?" Then, Jimmy came in and said, he owns the place. So that was a funny story.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I looked online yesterday, the Irvine, so that place has it been converted to townhouses? Is it, that's the story I heard. What's happened with that facility?
No, Irvine will not allow it. The city of Irvine, it's zoned as recreation. It'll never be zoned anything else. That's our understanding. And so, a guy that owns Carvana, bought it in July.
Okay.
And he's turning all the courts into, sounds like a rebound ace or a different service a little bit, and redoing them. And then he's redoing basically everything.
Yeah, for our listeners, that's one of the only places in Southern Cal with clay courts.
Right.
So when you were the director there, you like typically of a director, you had to wear all sorts of hats?
Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot. I still tell people this. It's like sometimes you just have to take the job you're not ready for and figure it out.
Yeah, that's good advice.
And so I just figured it out. So I tried to call people and say, "I'll pay you for all your information about being a director." And a lot of them say, "Don't pay me. I'll talk to you and give you any information you want." One of them was Doug Cash.
Okay.
I called him and he probably gave me 3 hours of his time and just laid it out a little bit for me, which was really nice.
Yeah.
And so I just did my best.
And how many years were you the director there?
I was there for 3 years. And then there was some changes going on, and I kind of wanted to try the country club gig. And so there was a country club job that came along at Yorba Linda, which is about 20 minutes from there. And they offered me the job. And so I moved. That was about 3 years ago, maybe 3.5 years ago to this month range, right around there.
And what describe that experience? Yeah.
So, one of the things is it's nice when you feel really comfortable when you're in a interview with somebody, or you just know that they're at a higher level than you. And so when I got interviewed by the GM of Yorba Linda, he had been a GM for Marriott for his whole career for 30 years. And he was the one that trained GMs for their corporation. And so I was kind of excited about being able to work for him. And so I got a chance to spend 2 years with him. And him as a GM was really good because he was so detailed and everything was really kind of buttoned up and done well, or it wasn't done. And so he would always ask me, if you're going to add this, it better be done well. Or tell me. So I learned a lot in those 2 years with him. He moved on and went back to Arizona. And another GM came in who was really good. And so, but I was sort of done driving 45 miles each way. And so that's where I ended up right now. I mean, that's a short story of it, but one of the things that I really focused on in these jobs was the ladies' tennis. And I had no experience with it before, but I made a point of getting really good at coaching those ladies and making time for them and telling them how important it was that they were there. And one of my mentors told me that the ladies choose what club they're going to be at, not the husbands. The husbands don't care. They can be at a different club, but the ladies really decide. And so I always made an effort to make sure they knew I was there for them. And I still do it.
And that's a tough job as far as the lineup and who plays with who, and tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we have this thing called Pac Sun, and it's the big deal in Southern California. So I went from 28 courts. Another thing that was kind of a big deal for me changing was I went from 28 courts where courts were still in demand, but you could find one at most times of the day, unless it was prime time on Saturday, to going to 8 courts. So it was a good challenge for me to figure out how to use 8 courts and get the most out of them. Well, at the last club, the 28 court facility club, we had 10 teams. And at the 8 court facility, we had 10 teams. So it was really a balancing act on getting people on teams. The club had a waiting list at Yorba Linda, which was from the pandemic, and everybody wanted to play tennis. And so we were trying to make it so that the teams were full, but not too full, so nobody could play, a lot of people weren't playing. So that balance was always hard. And I still don't know if I figured it out correctly, but I did the best we could with what we had. I don't know, Dave, do you deal with the ladies teams or?
I've done plenty of it in my life. Yeah. In my, like you, I kind of, in my younger days, fresh, still involved with Steve in East Texas, but I took on a lot of different things. And I became a national verifier, and then I was the USTA league coordinator for Northeast Texas. And it was always a balancing act. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the taking care of that portion of the population is huge. And, we have one person. I mean, we have a bunch of pros that's all they do. But, we, like with every group, there's superstars, and we have one superstar that, really helps regulate that part of it. But it's a balancing act. I was telling you guys before we got going on the podcast, I was just coming off the courts, and we have, a record 16 USTA junior team tennis teams that began today, some at home, some away. But wow. It's also a big day for USTA adult play. And we do have a massive facility, but we needed another 10 courts today. And it was a little bit chaotic. And, it's once any segment of the population in your club starts stepping on the toes of the other one, it never ends well. So we've always tried to balance it. But the ladies will let the manager know right away. Okay. Juniors, it often gets there a little bit slower, but the ladies will definitely let the GM know quicker.
Yeah. For young coaches listening, young tennis teaching professionals, when I was younger and traveling here, there, and everywhere, I mean, at one point, I lived in a van for 2 years. 1 year was to play tournaments because I was told you have to be a ranked player. So I accomplished that. And then the next year I went from one place to the next, but I was really just focused on how people were teaching, coaching. I wasn't really so interested in the facility design or the pro shop or the programming. So it was certainly a mistake. But being at Dave's place many times, it's amazing how organized it is with league play and tournaments. And I'd like to just share this as Nick Bollettieri, the late Bollettieri used to always say, he would ask at a conference, who's in charge of what type of peanut butter the family's going to buy? And they just say, you got to get the moms. The moms are the ones who are, deciding what people are going to do within the family, where they're going, where the activities are, and such and such. And then you get the kids, and the dads just tag along. They're not really they're not generally too involved in the decision-making process. See, I don't think most dads really care what type of peanut butter it is, but the kids will know, Mom, I like Jiffy. Mom, I like Peter Pan. I like Crunchy. I like Smooth. So,
and that's so true for my family as well.
Yeah.
So yes,
with
the decision maker.
Yeah,
on tennis.
Let's talk about your two kids in a minute, but let's go with Dave Secker. Tells me that you are at your dream club. You're right back in your neighborhood. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm back in Laguna Nigel, and I'm 7 miles away from work and my house, and the club I grew up at. The owner is still there, Cecil Spearman, and then under him is his son Mark, who is definitely operations and makes everything work. And then I'm right there with those guys, trying to help as much as I can. So it's been a little bit less of the admin side. I was doing maybe 20 hours of admin and paperwork, and I ran a shop at the last club. I'm not doing as much of that, and more about programming and tennis and building more of the high performance groups. And so I've been there for about 8 weeks. And it's nice to be back to this area. Our
listeners, I just encourage you to go online, Laguna Nigel
Racquet Club.
One person has the title, I believe it's match arrangement specialist, something along those lines. How does it work for that gal? I mean, what?
She's great. She knows every member, and if people need matches, she sets them up. My findings are that a lot of times it's the same people that need matches, and so it becomes an art putting them in different matches. We do have a thing called open courts every day, which is from 4:30 to 6, where you sign up by 12 noon that day, and then we set you up with doubles, and we'll have 3 or 4 of those courts going every day. There's a lot of programming that we have, so we can put people in at all levels. From beginner, which is the hardest one to sometimes fill, because those people sometimes are in for a little bit and then out and they come back. But the programming, she's part of that and runs a lot of that day to day, where people go.
I tell people that years ago I was BJ Armitrage's neighbor, because I parked my van next to his Mercedes. When he would travel, he'd leave his vehicle at the John Wayne Tennis Club in Newport Beach. This goes back 79, 80. I think it was 17 courts, 17 monitors, and the person at the front desk had a monitor for every court. And people at the club had a rating 1 through 10. And my entrance to that club is Kim Wittenberg was the assistant professional, and we had taught for All American Sports years before that. But I think that's one of the toughest jobs in tennis. Dave, why don't you comment on that, arranging match play?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's critical. I mean, we have a huge member base, but I think the hardest thing is to come in somewhere, a new member. We were actually talking about it yesterday morning with our membership department, one of the ladies, and for people to have a point of entry, and we have a quick start program and all of that, and we try to get people plugged in, but it's still difficult. And some people just have tough schedules. But I think everybody that I've run into in my life has my cell number, and I always tell them just to shoot me a text. And Friday afternoon, Friday at 9:00, Tom Adcock, a former D1 college player who's like 190 years old now, he asked me to, get him a hit at noon. So we use our academy kids. And they fill in. I mean, we have kids that have won national bowls that are filling in as a fourth with 3-0 ladies. And we have, really good adults who actually just text and say, can I come out today? And we do it that way. But I think having the ability to find a partner for people to hit with is key. And let me ask you, Brandon, everybody I speak to, I'm assuming it's the same out there, but clubs overall seem to be changing to member-only experiences rather than non-members with surcharge. Is yours like that?
We're member-only, except for juniors. But we have a lot of live drill, and so that's a big part of our club. But you can do it 3 times, and you have to become a member. Yeah, for the adults especially, it's member-only.
Yeah, and the juniors, you have a short test drive that they can do, or can they go throughout the year as non-members?
No, they can go throughout the year.
But just a surcharge, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the equity clubs, they do member-only, so the juniors become members in the area.
Got it.
I know that.
Yeah.
But we're not there on that exactly.
With
seems to be a strong trend.
With event, and I don't think really on our podcast we've spent too much time talking about events. What's the first thing that comes to your mind if you're training a group of tennis teaching professionals to run events?
First thing comes to my mind?
Yeah, just to get rolling on this.
Yeah, it's not what happens in the event; it's how you make them feel. So if somebody comes out to an event and they feel like they were taken care of, they had a great time, and there was a lot of hospitality, I should say, then that's a great event. These social events, they're not going to play with everybody their level the whole time. There's different events for different things, but I always kind of love to make people feel good, have a great time, keep it light, and just make it an experience that they want to come back to.
With, I think way back when, Dave, one of our projects was we had to put together a calendar of events with, like say January, February, March. Let's why don't you two talk a little bit about club programming and what would be ideas, or what are the basics and what are the creative programs that you'd put on a calendar of events?
Go ahead, Brandon, and I'll follow you.
Sure. I think you have to kind of have a little bit of everything for everybody without overdoing it on, for example, if you have a club championship and you have a bunch of those and everything is too competitive, then you're missing a whole group of people. If you go too social, you're missing a whole group of people, which means everybody mixes together and it's more fun than anything. And then if you're too based on drills, which we do a little bit of those too, drill events, then it's kind of a mix of things we're doing. And then every year I try 1 or 2 new events and see if they fit. And if they didn't, at least we gave them a shot. Like this year, we're going to do a triples event. Never done it before. Three players are in, 1 person's out. There's 4 on each team, and we'll play to 21 with the coach feeding in, and then we'll bump. And we'll try to make the teams pretty equal. Team events are always good. People like to be part of teams. I think the events you need to give enough time so people can sign up for the next event as well, which means if you do events every 2 weeks, it can be a little too much if they're big, but there's a sweet spot for that. And I have a lot of thoughts on events. The one thing I do is I always try to make it fun by dressing up or being kind of like a person that is bringing the energy. We just did a Super Bowl event, and it's a team event, the Chiefs versus the Eagles, and every round you score points for your team. And we threw in dingles this time, which it was decently received. It was not easy for the 3-0 group, but I like to experiment a little bit on the events and try new things. But we did doubles, jingles, the drill court where you play points on that, and we just made people rotate around and do different things for 2 hours. People, I think after COVID really wanted events and they want to be part of that. I think it's a big deal at every club. So Dave, what are your findings?
Yeah, I think that, it's not an area I'm heavily involved in, but I actually love events. And, I think that what you said is so key. It's not about the, reinventing of a wheel with an event, but it's whoever is going to be the person at the head of it. They need to have a just incredible energy and positive attitude going through it. Seems like at our club, we have a mega church kind of in that it's not like we can almost open the doors to everybody because there's too many people. But I think we have some that are kind of all inclusive, where it does give everybody the chance. And then there's others that are kind of geared more towards a particular sector of the club. But I think that what I've noticed in the last probably 4 or 5 years, I think COVID has changed a lot of things, is that I think people are looking actually for even family type things. Maybe they're not all mixed in together, but kids are doing something at the same time as the adults are, and kind of a one-stop shop for the entire family. But it's the key to a great club. There's no doubt about it. I think we have a great club, but I think that it's an area that we need a shot in the arm with.
Guys, what's the breakdown between standing events on a master calendar and special events? Why don't you go first, Brandon?
Special events and standing events?
Yeah, so like a standing event, something, just every Monday, every Tuesday. But a special event, go ahead.
We have both. And sometimes the standing events get a little stale. The Friday night mixer for mixed doubles needs not always the same person to run it, and it needs different people to come out to it. So sometimes just mixing those things up a little bit and saying, hey, this is going to be something different on Friday night. We're going to mix it up and do men's only or different things like that. I think just assessing what you have and what's working is a big deal. We have a lot of programming at this club I'm at now, and I think that's great because somebody can say, hey, I want to play on Thursday, and there's a group either at 4:30 or 6 for them, basically at every level, except for beginner. We do Monday and Thursday nights for beginner. So the standing programs, you have to have them, and then the value there for their membership. The one-off, once a month, once every 3-week events, those are another key one. And I love the idea of having the family there as well. We're doing an open house on April 5th where we're going to have pickleball, the fitness people out on the court. We're going to have a junior section of it, and we're going to have drills. And so you're bringing new people that are not part of the membership for that. And it's it's an open house, but everybody's going to be there. And so it brings a lot of energy. And the one-off events, I mean, those are, I guess, just as important because some people only do those, and that's their social outlet is to go to those and maybe hit with their buddy on Sunday morning once every week. So yeah.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I think the standing events that we have, some of them have been going for the entire time I've been there, which will be 32 years in October. We really take care of we have big committees, career women's, and then BCWTA, which is the career women's. Then we have a BWTA, and then we have the BMTA, and so all these different parts of the population are represented in these committees, and we work with them to kind of create events and let them kind of help design how they want them. And we hold those and we run those, our staff kind of volunteers the time to man them and really take care of the committees, because they're the voice to all of the, to the masses. We had a great event. I'll give Billy fair credit on this. Our former tennis director, manager, but it was a great event for about 10 years. And then I think the world changed and it lost its humor, but it was called the Clydesdale Open. And it was a doubles event for any club members, but you had to have you had to have a weight. You had to weigh in, and you had to exceed a certain amount in order to. So you had to offset a certain, and I can't remember, and if you didn't get to 300 pounds together, I think it was like 350, but the men ate it up. But then 10 years into it, it just kind of, I think, as America got a little bit sensitive, we had to do away with it. But it was just, and it was always with just terrible, greasy food afterwards and lots of, adult libations. And so, yeah, but some of those are the most fun to me, these things where you get a little away from the norm. But I think every club is kind of locked into having pretty strong standing traditions with events, because it keeps the membership alive and engaged.
Let's do this for a second, Ivan. Randy Raskin. One thing that Randy Raskin has in common with Brandon and Dave is that he used to take my son Connor to tournaments. And, I just think if Connor was about to win 6-1, 6-1, and next thing you know, it's 6-1, 6-4, and Randy's right there just in his face. But I took a group of people out for lunch. It was coaches and players, and there was maybe 10 of us at the most. And so Randy's there and comes up from Miami, where he brought a kid from Germany. I remember Matt Clore was going to help us. He's a national coach or senior manager with USTA. And so he couldn't make the meeting, or he couldn't make the luncheon because he had a meeting. I just texted him and said, Matt, you're in the wrong meeting. So Andy held court. Randy held court because he had been in a 100-year plus. But tell us a little bit about that, Ivan, that few minutes.
A highlight of our trip down to Florida. It was amazing. He's unbelievable storyteller, captivating, made every one of us laugh. We should have recorded that. It was just the way he talks about his experiences with different tournaments and players is just such a unique way of speaking. It made us all laugh. I was very lucky to be there.
Well, it's not to get into it could have been SNL, Saturday Night Live. It had to be 100 years combined, and it was a tournament. It wasn't for heterosexuals, and it was for homosexuals. And Randy, got into it with the umpire, and I'm sorry. I know I'm in the wrong tournament. We just want to win the tournament. And so Randy's, this why it makes me think of it. Randy's way, way overweight. And he was a really good tennis player. He's one of the better players in Florida when he was 14. And the sad thing, his dad passed away, and we all grieve differently. So he spiraled downward, but he just loves the game. And not too long ago, one of our parents, their child has won some gold balls, and they called me up. Randy could just recognize this player by the way they hit the ball. And just the mom, I said, no, you'll love this guy. You don't judge the book by its cover. Really, really loves tennis. But, so anyway, it really can bring out some fun. But that was one thing that got sidetracked with Randy wanting to win. Do you find that that leads to the question, is that when you run social events, is it still a problem where people want to, instead of just come out and to have fun and participate and interact, is it it needs to be competitive. But you find you have problems where someone just gets out of line because they want to win too badly in adult socials?
I'll take that, Dave. But
yeah, I have a story on that after.
Go ahead,
okay,
Brandon.
Go ahead.
So just real quick on that, I set expectations for these events, and some events are for social and not doing that and not being competitive as much. And then some of them are a little bit more on the side of, let's put you in the same level of group and you guys be super competitive, and then let's make it fun, but not over the top. And then you get a lot of, I think the members will give feedback to some of the members that are too competitive, and they get that feedback sometimes in ways that I wouldn't do it, but that works. And so I think that definitely you want people knowing what kind of event it is before they get in there. But a lot of people, I think people understand that they're going there to have fun. And it's also, if there's just tennis, that's one thing. But if you add other things on top of it, like food and beverage and a bar and all that stuff, they know it's more of an event. You probably have a couple stories there.
Well, no, right when Steve said it, I had a little PTSD flashback because, it reminded me of the Bill Cosby quote. I don't know the secret to success, but I know the secret to failure. Try and keep everybody happy. And, we have these 4th of July and Labor Day and all of the Memorial Day mixers, mixed doubles for adults. And I play with my wife in it, who just really started at COVID, but she's at the point now where she can play a little bit. And so we're playing against one of her teammates and her husband or boyfriend or something. And, I'm just tapping the ball over, and the lady at the changeover said, this is really, she goes, quit patronizing me. She goes, I played as a junior. I used to live at Nukes, and go ahead and, I'd rather get beat. So I said, okay, well, I wasn't patronized. I was just trying to have some good rallies. And so the next 2 games, nobody touched the ball. And, there was no, we won the point like that. And then on the changeover, she said, this isn't going to be any fun if we don't get to play tennis. And so I think that you're smart to spell it out in advance. But even with it spelled out in advance, there's always going to be some grumbling. But the 90, if you're getting 98% thumbs up and 2% thumbs down, I'd say it's a huge victory.
No, I think it's certainly a challenge. I would say that everybody wants to play up and win. And
yeah.
Ivan, what did Doug Cash use on a couple weeks ago? Pizzazz, personality. How's he? Remember how he defines the pro?
Oh, I know. I can find it though. I have it right here.
So anyway, I'm a young coach and working for All American Sports, and we're teaching technique in the mornings, and there's a round robin in the evening. And way back when, I go, this is instruction destruction. But it was scheduled to be cheese and crackers, wine, beer. And I mean, it was right on the ocean in West Hampton, a beautiful place. So I added practice to it. And so you can have, a round robin going where, well, if you want to be in the round robin, but get people to come out and practice. And if they're drinking some wine, having some beer, it was one of the highlights of my tennis teaching career. There was 2, this goes way back, 1979. There's 2 vending machines. People have heard me say that before. Is that, the people would come from across the street. It was a beautiful place on the ocean. The waitress would come by, and I go, this isn't going to work. So outside, this is when it was bottles of Coca-Cola, bottles of 7-Up, and inside, and I made sure that it was there, outdoor season, Memorial Day, Labor Day, I just had a huge coffee jar filled with quarters. And it was, hey, Ralph, you want a beer? So we'd get the wine there, and the wine was already all iced up in chest. But so, no, we had a ton of fun. So if you want to play, you can go over there. If you want to practice, you can come over here. But it was, just run, and it was orchestrated together where it worked. And but I think that, what is the title?
Yeah, Doug Cash, DPP, Dazzling Pro Personality.
Yeah, but I would say both Brandon and Dave had to one more time.
Dazzling pro personality.
Yeah, I teach people. I mean, I've certainly said both you guys, I gave you guys personality lessons, but what would you do if you have it? And certainly you both have done this, is that you have a young coach who has some stage fright and they don't have one more time?
Dazzling pro personality.
What do you do if someone has to run an event and they don't have that ability to, I remember, Brandon, you were at the workshop one time, you came a little bit late, so I had you and your 3 staff members all sing, and you just did it with a smile on your face. And, it turned it into a fun moment. Hey, you guys are late. Here's the punishment. Get out here. Some people would just lock up and there's no way that they would sing, but I just knew that you could pull it off. But what do you guys do? What comes to your mind?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that they need to prep. And I need to help with that prep. I take a bit of pride, I'm sure you do too. Well, all of you guys do here in this conversation, that we want to get people to keep getting out of their shell and get better. And if they want to be a director someday, they need to be able to run events and be in front of people and show who they are. So I think that I always say this about tournaments too. It's like the first 5 tournaments are just to get used to doing them. You're not trying, if you do well in those tournaments, that's great. But you're trying to get your feet wet. Same with events a little bit. You're going to keep getting better at them and more comfortable. And then you can really, shine and be a dazzling pro if you keep working at it. So I always try to not be the one running every single thing. But I also don't like to give too much up, because those events are super important to me as well. The prep, the giving them the experience, and then, not, if it doesn't go that well, it's okay. We're going to do it again. Where you're doing the next one. And so, just being there for support as well.
Oh, that's great advice. I do think that a lot of coaches that have spent so much time working with juniors, they can be very comfortable talking to juniors, but when they talk to adults, they lock up. Go ahead, Dave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's incrementally letting somebody's leash go off a little bit further. I had a great coach here, became a very good tennis coach, but he was definitely on the introverted side, and he, when we were doing an evaluation, I said, hey, you're brilliant one-on-one. Now you got to get brilliant with 1-on-6. And then I said, then you need to get brilliant with a coach beside you with 6, and you're handling that court while you're handling your court, and then 1 on each side, and so on and so on. And I think it's the same with events, because that club's the hard part is, if you do throw somebody in and they don't, hit it out of the park, club members have long memories with that stuff. It's kind of like somebody coming in maybe and they don't have much of a playing background, and the coach sticks them with a junior right away, and the 14-year-old beats them 0-0. It's a label that tends to stick, whether it's deserved or not. So I think that you got to just prep people along the way, let them, it's a skill set. And then once they're capable of it, then there needs to be so much preparation, plan A, plan B, plan C, so that when they do get there, they know they're covered as far as having a safety net.
I think it's like speaking in public. If a kid, you got to make a presentation in class, he's nervous going into school that day. But I love what you said about being organized, Brandon. But if you have, the beginning and you know the end. But I think also too the levels, because some people are, you don't want to typecast, but some people are naturally a Pied Piper, an entertainer. But my experience would be a lot of times that person, they're going to fall short becoming organized. The introvert will have a tendency to be more organized. The extrovert, we always say you can only wing it if you've won it. If you haven't won it, you can't wing it. But they do also think too that, people need to know, like, this is just as important as who's the club champion? Everyone has to come out and feel like they really benefited from it. Calcutta. One of the funniest things I ever saw was out in Newport Beach at this John Wayne Tennis Club, where players, Tracy Austin was a member, Bob Lutz, Stan Smith, Rod Laver, VJ Armitage, it was Billie Jean King. It was just amazing who was the members, a lot of Aussies. And, but to see D players, they're, or I guess you could say beginning 3-0, 3-0 minus. And because there's some money on the line, the teams are betting and everybody's cheering for everybody. Any thoughts on Calcutta's? You go first, Brandon.
Yeah, we do one. The betting I'm not a part of. So when we do that, that was at my last club with Troon and that group. The betting was on their end. I organized facilitated the teams and made everything equal. And so there was a 5-0 on one line, 4 or 5, there's going down. And so the teams look close to the same level. The Calcuttas are definitely one of the more fun things. And we're going to do one at the club in May, coming up at the new club I'm at. And we get college players to come out. They get paid by how many sets they win. And so it becomes pretty fun based on your win-loss record. And I just think it's those events make a club. People remember those events for 6 months, talk about them, who won with who. And I think that's one of our main events, even over sometimes the club championships now these days, even though you get your name on the plaque. Still definitely more fun to win as a team.
Especially if you get if you're the club champion and you get a parking space, that's like huge.
Yeah.
With go ahead.
We had that at the country club. They do that a little more, and I kind of want to bring that to this club. But the parking spot's pretty big. You get it for the year.
Yeah,
that is nice.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, we used to hold at Calcutta. It was a blast. I've played in them at other clubs. Did away with it 10, 12 years ago, probably. And, some things just kind of die a slow death. And for some reason it did. It'll be something I'm sure that will come back in terms of our calendar of events. The members love it. We have, always had just really positive response, and it just kind of went away. But much like, unfortunately, like Brandon said, the club championships and ladders have kind of become not obsolete. If not obsolete, they become less significant at clubs. And I'm hoping that we can kind of circle back and get them all to become what they were back in the 70s, 80s.
I have another question. With events at a tennis club, are they, obviously I would say, I'm going to guess, not 100% membership appreciation. How many are paid? Then there's you comment on both of you would comment on this. When you put food and beverages with it, then it's not successful. Then there's that expense. And then how do you pay people to run how do you pay people to run an event? That's quite a few things, but membership appreciation, a paid fee, guests coming in, and then how would you deal with food and beverages expenses? Why don't you go, Brandon?
Yeah. So we have a member appreciation event. I do a P&L for the events. And so the money that is sometimes left over from those events will be used towards the member appreciation at the club I'm at now. The last club I was at, we had a committee. They were called the tennis board, and they would collect $75 from each member that wanted to be an event for the year. And that money would go towards events and making them more affordable. So we'd have better food. So an event would be $40 and include lunch, breakfast, and the event. And so that was subsidized. And then at the end, when the money was left over, we'd use that for the member appreciation. So that limited how many guests we could have. If you weren't a member of the board, you weren't allowed to do the event. The Calcutta we're going to do this year in May, non-members are allowed, but it's going to be a really high level group. And so it brings a level that members can watch. It's some of the, Fullerton women's team and some of the Redlands men's team. And there's a bunch of college at line 1, and then line 5 through 6 are all members. So that's a nice mix. We don't allow a lot of non-members in the event. We'll have 1 or 2 just to get them in there. We'll do a member guest. But we're really trying to gear towards members and keeping them. It's more retention.
And thoughts on food and beverage?
Food and beverage, we have been, our events, the event I've been running lately, it just seems like they're doing well. So we haven't had a problem with the food and beverage. And we price them, we try to do food and beverage so it's priced correctly. And so there hasn't been a big issue there that I've found. So at a country club, there's a director of food, the F&B director. There's a chef, head chef, and a sous chef. And so there's a lot of conversations that happen going into these events that are more than just, let's figure out a menu. I got to know exactly what the cost is going to be for food. Then I have to price it accordingly for the event. And then we need to break even for a country club. The private club I'm at now, we want to make a little bit of money off the event, but not too much. But we want to put that money back into the end of the year member appreciation. So the food and beverage is less sit down. It's more buffet style, and they pay for their drinks on their own. So we keep it safe.
Okay, that's good. Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the events, it's not about necessarily making money. Losing money is a different animal, but most of the events are really to take care of the members, and whether it's a GM or whether it's a corporation or whatever, they're looking primarily at member retention, and so the events kind of are looked at in that regard. But when we hold a special event for, whether it's a Halloween mixer for the kids or a special event, which I'm sure it's that way from coast to coast now. Everybody's playing this game 105. That's been around for a while now. I still don't know how to do it, but there'll be 6-8 courts sometimes going with 105 and music blasting and those kind of things. The pro is incentivized. They get a percentage of. If they were the coordinating pro, they get a additional chunk of the revenue. So it becomes a special thing. People, I think, have to have some skin in the game to feel like they're going to really pull a special event off well. But again, the ones that are kind of orchestrated by the committees, they have so much volunteer help that they really get behind it. And we just have to kind of have our plan and show up and go from there. But anything that any of the staff members want to run, if, Coach Andreas wants to run a special clinic for the adults, he would get incentivized to do it above and beyond his normal fee to put it together for the organizational costs. But member appreciation, we have actually once for all the membership, golfers, tennis players, anybody that joins the club, one Wednesday a month. They have, for all the new members to come in and go through an orientation, a great meal, food and drink provided. And then for the entire year, those members have the opportunity to come out there and do that every Wednesday, once a month on Wednesdays. And I think it really helps people get plugged in and feel like the club is investing in them as well. Cause getting people in and then getting them to, feel like they're a vibrant or a part of a real key part of the club. I think that's the toughest thing.
It makes me think of so many things. Running an event where telling the staff, there's so many stories. Hey, we have to go through to all the garbage cans, and because some people bring in their own. Well, that can happen. Where anything can go wrong. They bring in their own alcohol. They bring in their own beverages. Yeah, I think paying people through salary, through hourly, through percentage. But having an understudy to be able to do it, because obviously, the director can't be there all the time, and to make sure it's a success. Let's shift gears. Yeah. Both you gentlemen have daughters, different ages now, but tell us about being a parent, Brandon. You and your wife, 2 daughters, age 6 and 8. Is that right?
Yeah. It's a great experience, obviously, and one of the toughest ones, obviously, to be a parent. It's taught me a lot about handle kids better. So I think the parenting has helped my coaching. I am a little more empathetic to parents. I'm still figuring out how to get my kids into tennis a little bit, but we're going slowly, and me being closer to home and them coming to the club has been nice. Do I need them to be into tennis? No, whatever they want to do, I'm fine with it, but it would be nice to do the sport that I was part of and know a little bit about.
But your wife played soccer growing up too, though, right?
Yeah, she was on a team that did well in soccer in high school. She got some offers for some full rides for D1 and Ivy League, but didn't want to leave California. So she didn't play soccer in college. But so the girls are going to be somewhat decent athletes. And, I would love to learn how to navigate that. And there's people that have a lot more experience as parents, Dave being one of them, Steve, you, obviously, of how to make it work.
Going back to leaving California, you've told your wife you're going to be the new director of the Wintergreen Resort in Wintergreen, Virginia. Have you told her that yet?
Yeah, she said, I'll see you after the summer then.
No, I told Dave Secker, I'm calling up your buddy. I said, I'm going to get him to move up here to the mountains. He's like, no way is he ever leaving Southern California. No, I do think this is true. Dave, you could comment on this is, I didn't get married till I was 33 years old and had been in the kid business already for a long time, but you don't know till you know. You don't know till you actually have children. Go ahead, Dave, your turn.
No, I agree. I mean, that comment's true. I tell our coaches all the time, we meet as a group on Mondays at 1, and I said, wait till you write a check to a gymnastics class or anything your kid is involved in. And when you go to observe one time, and, even if it's just not to judge, but just to be there for fun, and the class starts 5 minutes late and ends 5 minutes early. And, and back then my kids, teachers weren't on cell phones, but I think being a parent can change your perspective 100% on the job you do with kids each day. But yeah, I mean, my kids are grown-ups. They're like, I've got pictures of one of our daughters in a bathtub in Florida with Connor, when they were little tiny kids, and goes quick, blink of an eye. Now, today, our whole family was, hanging out together, and we all went out and watched our 6-year-old grandson play his first junior team tennis match. So, it was fun, and but it goes so quickly. It's an amazing journey, never ending. I remember my mom saying when she never got to sleep on the weekends until she knew everybody was home. But I guess that there is some truth in that. They're always gonna be your kid, even when they're adults. You worry about them in different ways.
Brandon, great input. Brandon, you back at Laguna Nigel Racquet Club. Yep. With what are your thoughts on events for little kids?
I think they're really important. And being a parent, I want my kids to have more social activities related to tennis, so they meet more people, and there's not always a cost to it. And so that side has become more important to me. The events, I think there should be more events for kids. And that's kind of one of my goals, is to have those, Friday nights where they can play tennis, and then they can have pizza, and then they can watch a movie, or the parents, have something to do as well. But there hasn't been, the focus has always been adults on that side. And we always keep it kind of status quo. in the tennis world a little bit on that. But I'm sure there's people out there doing a lot of that. I guess I'm speaking for myself that I want to add more of the junior events and make it more of a social thing.
Chunky Cheese. It's like, okay, let's just copy that business model, Chunky Cheese. Years ago in Tampa, I was there 15 years. There was a K-Swiss league that was very successful. And a gentleman approached me and wanted me to help him put together a little kid league. And I said, 10 events, tennis Olympics, prizes. And that's where it comes down to, we have a form tournament, target tournament. But I think if people could just come out and be around tennis courts and have fun. But at the same time, that shouldn't carry over that the instruction is always like that. But I think if kids could come out, you got some basketballs and some soccer balls. But I think that's so important because initially it's a challenge to make tennis fun. You can have an instant pickup soccer game. A little bit easier than basketball. It's pretty hard to get that ball up in the hoop when you get really little kids. But tennis is like, forget it. And then I remember the USTA at one time, it looked like polo. They had a game where it was very dangerous. The ball was rolling on the ground. I can't remember what they called it.
Jungle ball.
The ball was rolling on the ground. It was wild, that's for sure. But the kids are swinging rackets, and I always thought someone's going to get hurt. But what are your thoughts on events for little kids, David?
Yeah, I think I mean at a club like the kind I'm at, or the kind that Brandon and many people are at, I think it. Like I said, I'm just seeing a trend for families. I mean, people are wanting to hang out together as families, and I think that the more creative we can get, trying to kill two birds with one stone and interface them, and I think you can. I remember when I first got here, Steve, you gave me some ideas, and one of the first, I ran a bunch of free clinics, and I think that's something that honestly I need to get back to, is just running free clinics on the weekends with different themes. But one of my favorite was just practice. So sometimes 2 adults would show up, sometimes 10, but now just open it up to anybody. Teaching parents, we have easily 20 staff baskets. I call them staff baskets. They're just training baskets with, balls that are from 1940 Wimbledon. And they're not the balls the pros use to teach their one-on-one stuff and whatever, but they're just there. We use them in academy all the time, teaching people how to practice. And I think that's where a free clinic could be run weekly for a half hour or an hour, teaching families how to practice together. And, it ties kind of the best of everything together. Some instruction, some longevity in the sport, and family time.
Yeah, some key words. And Brandon said committee, to go to your committee and ask for different themes. But the two of you, personality-wise, Dave, for example, if you're in a position where you're the heavy, you're in charge. But if it was a support pro, so I remember years ago, Brandon, why don't you tell the story? I'll just give you the hint with my son, Connor. Jumbo juice. What comes to your mind? Jumbo juice.
Jamba juice, but yes.
Jamba juice.
We were at Copper Bowl. I think that was the tournament, right? It was in Arizona.
There was 2 in Arizona. It was one of the 2 for sure. Copper Bowl. Or
Fiesta and Copper. Yeah, Fiesta and Copper.
I think we were down in Tucson, and he's playing a guy from Florida in the semis, is my memory here. And he was down a bit, and we had a thing going. If he won the round, he got to go to Jamba Juice. This is my memory of it. And he was down. This kid was pretty good. I think he was going to Florida or one of the schools. And so it's 18s. And I'm there with them, and I took a couple kids, Connor being one of them. And we're sitting there, and I yell out, Jamba Juice. And I swear, I've never seen somebody turn around a match so quick. And like all he needed was one reason to win.
With you weren't called for coaching though, were you?
No.
Yeah. One time I was with Connor at a challenger, and he won a couple of rounds, and he was playing Philip Bester, who was kind of a man child. I believe he won both the Eddie Herr and Orange Bowl. He definitely won one of them, because I remember asking Connor, was only like an hour away from where we were living. We used to make day trips to Paul Terry's, and said, I was taking young kids to see the finals, and he said he went, so he watched Philip Bester. But Connor was playing Bester one time, and I tried to tell Bester afterwards, because he confronted me. He said, "You started coaching." And I said, I yelled out 3 words 3 different times. I yelled out "fight." And of course, he was right. I yelled out "force." And Connor won that match fairly quickly, too, because he just started attacking. But no, I think of actually Philip Bester was at one time coaching Wayne Gretzky. Do you remember when were you at Advantage when Gretzky went through?
Yeah, the daughter.
Yeah, you coached the daughter.
I didn't. We knew her. She was in the tournament.
I think she went to SMU, right, Dave?
Yeah, I don't think the whole time though. Yeah. And I remember Bester. He connected with them years back.
Yeah, maybe it was a hitting partner or whatever. I remember telling Jimmy, that's the one person you should have sent me. Send me Gretzky's student. That would have been kind of cool. That was a long time ago, though. How about old cars? What's going on? I saw your old car on doing research for this podcast. You still into old cars?
I haven't had one since my 8-year-old was a baby. So I'm trying to find a outlet other than tennis and family, and it's been an outlet for me for years, is having these old BMWs. Another one.
Can you come up with a good acronym for BMW? How about Ford? Fix or repair daily. Found on road dead. First on race day. There's got to be a couple. I don't know anything for the BMW.
Break my window, I think, was one of them.
Yeah.
I don't think there's that many good ones, but
we'll have to work on that. What year was that? Anderson's pretty quick. There's this guy, Freddie Foreman, taught Anderson everything he knows with BMW. Work on that, Anderson. What year was that white one that I saw a photo of?
That's a 71.
71, wow. Yeah. And what would that be worth today?
I don't know. I bought it for $2,002.
2002.
I'm surprised they let you even drive that in California.
Before
the land of the Prius, yeah.
Well, before 76, you can drive anything you want.
Yeah.
And then they changed that to, the 76. It's all smogged, which changes everything.
Right.
And then, so I had a 71, a 73, a 70. Out of 77, I had to smog it every time. I had to put 100 octane gas in it to make it through smog. And so the old cars are fun until they break down, and then you're not having fun.
I got to get this in for Ivan too. He's from Southern Cal. United States is on a southwestern slope, and everything rolls to California. Used to be people, they do it in Canada too. I've got to go to Vancouver and find myself. But people years ago, it was a big deal back in the 60s or 70s from someone on the East Coast to find themselves in California. It was like a different world apart. But then another one is the granola states filled with nuts, fruits, and flakes. Terrible what happened with all the fires out there. You must have known some people that had to deal with that personally, huh?
Yeah, we knew a few. And then we know a few that were working at the Altadena tennis or the country club there that I understand that burned down. I haven't talked to them, but there's nothing good. There's a lot of people that move down to our areas about an hour without traffic, about an hour and 15 minutes south. So they have come down Laguna Nigel and are renting homes and living down here.
Yeah, it's so sad. So, you've been so gracious with your time. This has been great. A lot of pearls. Let's do this. Why don't we have Ivan? Why don't you ask a few questions or one or two? Cal Polly, your sister, asked this gentleman who's a graduate, what comes to your mind asking this Brandon Fallon about Cal Poly?
Cal Poly is quite beautiful. One question I'd say, how often did you make the trip down to the beach? I know it's can be like a 20-minute drive.
Yeah, I wish we would have gone down more. But there's a couple different beaches down there, as you know. There's Montana de Oro, which has a lot of poison oak, but it is literally the most beautiful place for camping and hanging out. And there's a couple surf spots down there.
Yeah, do you surf?
But I surf. If it's warm and nice, I'll surf.
Well, that's not. But I'm not a huge surfer. You don't get warm and nice that often up in Cal Poly.
No, summer is better for that. But if for the listeners that don't know San Luis Obispo, it's like this hidden gem in California that is an hour and a half north of Santa Barbara and about 3 hours south of San Francisco, San Jose area, maybe 4 hours. And it's there's nothing around it, and they have a water moratorium, which means that they can't build anymore. So it's stuck at 40,000 people. So it's a college town, and there's a little bit of growth, but there's not a lot of growth in that area by the beach.
How about one more question from Ivan, San Diego? Tell me your connection with San Diego. Then ask a question about San Diego.
San Diego, I graduated from University of California, San Diego.
Great school.
You said San Diego State, correct? That's the one on the hill up on top. We'd always be looking up at you. You on the mesa, yep. You guys in your fancy buildings. Our buildings were actually, I went there I transferred from Saddleback, and I went there from, let's say I graduated 22, so I went there for 2 years, 21 and 2021, 2022. The first year I came in, 6th college, for anyone that doesn't know, UCSD, very unique. They're such a big base of students that they have their own separate little colleges within the university. And it's just a title that they give groups of students. You just get placed. And there's some changes with which college, for example, GEs mainly. So if I was in 6th college, it didn't have a name at then. I have to look it up. Maybe they've given the 6th college a name, but there was more. You'd have to help me remember. I forgot, but there are different names after they would be named. I think they're up to 8 colleges, maybe even now. But at the time I came in, I was a 6th college student, but I was a transfer. There was this place called Camp Snoopy, which was just little apartments that the transfers would go to. But I was excited because I heard of the new college that was built for the 6th. I'm like, I'm going to be there. And it was beautiful. Absolutely amazing. You can just type it in. 6th college, UCSD. And it's just like the most beautiful apartment buildings you've ever seen. Right on the water. You see sunset every night. And I was so excited. I'm like, I'm going to be there. Nope. As a transfer student, you get put in the old 6th college Camp Snoopy. So, but I'd went and checked out the new facility, the new apartments quite often, and was reminded what I missed out on. Well, my question for you: did you ever get to play UCSD? I know that recently it became D1. So back then it was D2. Do you ever scrimmage or just play them local, because they were quite local to you, right?
Yeah, when I was at San Diego State, we played them every year. They were D2, but they were a top D2 team program. And I have a few connections there. A few players I worked with played there and loved it. It's a really hard school to get into. Mm-hmm. So you're limited to how many of the top juniors are going to get in there. But yeah, you guys always came to us and played at San Diego State. Mm-hmm. We never went to your campus.
I believe you guys have the nicer courts, but you guys always, like you mentioned, D1, D2, you guys would always be the superior team. I think it's actually, I'm not sure. They've been getting some good players. I know of recent years they've been climbing. I'd have to check up on that, but well, yeah, it's nice to know that San Diego State and UCSD they'd battle it out on the tennis courts.
Oh yeah, there were some years you guys were even though you were Division II and we were right around that like 45 to 50, 40 range on the rankings consistently, that you guys were close to our level. Some of the years it was like 4-2 or, or 5-2, or some of the matches would be close.
I remember one time taking a spring break and going to San Diego, and, that would be another podcast, just that trip, and did this and did that. Just met with different associations and different groups and different academies. Mike Estep, Dave, you bailed me out on that one. So for gratitude, I'm going to ask a trivia question. Who wrote the book, Racket Bag, Bend Your Knees, $20, Please?
I don't remember who wrote that. Who the author was, but
as soon as I said it, you would know. Ed Collins.
Oh yeah, Ed Collins, USD.
But I always thought, guys, there was just 2 universities in San Diego. But you're telling us there's 3.
Yes, there's the one on the hill, which is SDSU is the last one.
The one on the hill is the private one.
Yeah,
and that's where Ed Collins was the coach. I believe
he was actually at USD. Ed Collins, I thought.
I remember going many times to watch him teach tennis. Used to hang out with a guy named Scott Stanley, who he's still in San Diego. Someone I asked the other day, the people from my era, you don't really search people out on Facebook, but that's a beautiful place, San Diego. All right, Dave, why don't you ask Brandon a question, and we'll sign off here, but appreciate the time. This has been a great podcast.
Well, not really a question. Just a comment. I mean, it's been fun, Brandon, hearing about your incredible journey, and I'm glad that you found your way back into tennis, because tennis needs more and more people like you. And I think it's a really cool story of what I would say is a lot of range. You've experienced a lot of different things, and I'm sure that you're going to have an incredible, second half of your career as you move forward in it, with all the curiosity you have for learning and everything. And I guess if I did have one question, I would say to you, who do you think is by far the more talented Johnson brother, Joey or Jimmy? I kind of hinted there, but
yeah, they both have different skill sets.
Yeah, that's a clever answer. You can tell you're working at a country club. Very politically correct.
Well, I do have one thing to mention. I think it's kind of what I was thinking about. What would I tell myself as if I were a 25 or 30-year-old range now? And I'm sure you guys have a lot of thoughts there, but one thing I did really well, and I still do, is I say yes to a lot of things. I say less yes to things now, actually. I correct myself. But at the beginning, I said yes to doing red ball, orange ball, learning all that. Yes to a lot of things, instead of saying, no, I don't have time, or I like just doing hitting lessons. Let me see how many of those I can do. I wanted to learn, and I still have that mindset. And that's why I stay motivated, is because I keep learning and trying to get better. And the person I am now will be better in 6 months as a director, as a coach, as everything.
Yeah.
And I think that keeps me I get excited about teaching. And my wife's jealous because I do what I love. Mm-hmm. And she loves what she does, but not to the passion level I do. I'm like studying tennis, and I get ready for lessons. I think about every lesson a little bit before, and then make sure I'm on track with what I'm doing.
What does your wife do?
She's a project manager, so she's the organized one. And you're right about the person that likes to be in front of people not being the most organized. But I try to do my best on that area. But she's the more organized one, and she's really good at what she does as well.
I like the word project. I'm always telling kids, tennis, you're learning how to play tennis. It's not a job. If you learn to play tennis, it's not hard work. It's a project, and that's obviously for players, but you should always be trying to build. Obviously one, has to have that growth mindset. That's a great question, Jimmy and Joey. we're gonna get Sam Garcia on. What a class act! We just visited Sam in Vero Beach, and he reminded me that he played his doubles partner at San Antonio High School tennis was Jimmy Johnson, and yeah, it goes way back. But that's one thing too is tennis. You've had such an incredible journey. Your time was very short though when you got your degree from Cal Poly and entered the what I call the real world. That was short lived. You were back in tennis right away, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of story there too. I almost wanted to go into the medical world. Then they put me in the oncology department, and I decided I like people that are healthy versus sick people.
Yeah.
So that was an eye opener for me.
But no, I think with your journey in tennis is so many things. We always say that these podcasts are to help people out, get a tennis treasure chest and pearls of wisdom, golden nuggets. But everything from your start in tennis to the 3-all matches to playing in the French system, getting ATP points, and then with being involved with the USPTA. But I think it's so important that you've shared with us that what AJ Pan said to you. You got to start all over. And I do think that one thing within what we do, Dave and I are mostly in the lane of developing coaches and developing players. It's almost like no one wants to be with beginners. So there are people within the high performance, the player development side that don't even deal with that. But yeah, I mean, certainly what you're doing is, trying to bring all groups together and create a culture. But I think one thing that it's great to have you on. I know you've been very much part of player development, but with our podcast, I think it's great to emphasize all these social events and making it fun for everybody, because it's not just being in the business is not just about forehands and backhands. Let's do this and we'll sign it off. Why don't we go with the other Southern California? You want to just say a few things?
Yeah, I'll bounce around here and there. Quite a few notes we're taking. Long podcast. Thanks for everybody. All the listeners sticking through it. Don't wait until you're professional to do professional things. One thing is you went to high school tennis, the practice every time, every practice you went to. Realistic with you were realistic with your level and your chances of going pro. And then you told us your story about getting schooled by the older gentleman, and Steve related with his own story. We talked about the French rating system and how the UTR is based off of the French rating system, the minuses that go with the current UTR system, how players can see their score before they play their match, and it was a lot better if you played it more blind. Clay court experience is crucial. How many matches can you play in clay? Getting the shot the shot tolerance up. How much money do you want to spend per match? Steve had said. It's a good comment. If you don't volley till you're 18 or 19, you won't be a good player. You're here for the wrong reason. You're here because there are kids in the group that can beat your kid. Dave had mentioned that. Recruiting is being a spokesperson for an academy, your academy. Steve had mentioned, I fight ignorance every day. Ask and you shall receive. When you ask, for example, Dub Cash for some of his time, and he gave you 3 hours of his time. Who's in charge of the peanut butter? You gotta talk to the parents, the moms. It's not what happens in an event, is how you make them feel. You need a mix of events, drilling, championships, and socials. And we talked about standing events and special events. Talked about having an open house and setting expectations for events, whether it be competitive or just more social. Talked about how you prepare for events, how it's important to the club and its members. Club members have long memories. So if you mess up, they remember. Members pay for event betterment. So at the beginning of the year, you had mentioned members pay a little bit. So the events throughout the year are better. And you never know until you have your own kids. It's one of the last things I wrote.
Oh, that's great. Well, I hope you can come to Wintergreen as a visitor. You can always stop off in Dallas on the way. But it's been great to have you on the podcast. But Dave Anderson, thank you. Ivan.
Yeah, that's been fun.
Ozerets.
Thank you, guys.
Brandon Fallon.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
No,
great talking with you guys.
It's been great. Thank you very much. Everybody,
all right, guys. Have a good night. Thanks,
adios, amigos.
Adios. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, David. Another podcast in the books. We already covered golden nuggets for the tennis treasure chest. All right, wave goodbye, and we're out of here. But one thing, though, is, again, a long podcast like that is told that is listen to a little bit at a time in the course of 1 week. If you just listen, it takes 1% of your week. 1% of your week. So there's definitely so much within that. And that's our goal, is to try to help people with tennis. And again, adios, amigos.
Thank you.